easier it is to sell souls.
There is a new price on freedom, so buy into it while supplies last. Changes need to be made. No more curbside baggage. 7 p.m. curfew. Racial profiling will continue with less bitching. We've unified over who to kill, so until I find more relevant scripture to quote, remember, our God is bigger, stronger, smarter, and much wealthier. So wave those flags with pride, especially the white part.
We're selling addictive 24-hour candlelight vigils in TVs. Freedom will be defended at the cost of civil liberties. The viewers are glued to television screens, stuck, cause lots of things seem too sick. I use opportunities to pluck heartstrings for theme music. I show you which culture to pump.
All right, welcome to The Grift. We are recording.
This is, yeah.
I'm Reverend Al.
I'm Gonzo.
It is,
Still May.
is it still May?
It's still May
Fuck.
for like 3 more days.
God, I hate May.
On Sunday, we escape to June. And we will have completed
I shouldn't
4.5 months of this.
I shouldn't hate
existence.
May as much as I do, but I was born in May, and I've never liked it.
It hasn't given us much to work with in the past year, that's for sure.
Well, most years, I never like my birthday. Something almost always goes wrong, or I have like
Something.
My best birthday party was the time I fell off the mountain.
Not a good track record.
Not a good track record. But
Not a good
in my
track
defense, I
record.
was very drunk.
I would say my best birthday was the one when I turned 21 and saw Mr. Bungle live.
Oh, that is nice.
That was my
yeah.
21st birthday.
That's
It was my first show in the 21 plus
oh wow.
part of the. Yeah,
Very
yeah,
nice.
that was nice. That was a good time.
Yeah, Yeah.
It was part of the Snowcore tour. The headliners were Incubus and System of a Down. And System hadn't released Toxicity yet, so they were basically just playing the first album in its entirety.
Oh. I mean, the first album was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then
Like-
Toxicity came out like a year later.
It's yeah, I've told you the story how I accidentally saw them while they were touring on that first album, and I didn't know it was
Yes.
them. Yeah, and I only
Yes.
caught like 2 songs. It's like, oh, these guys are great, but
They were really good live.
but
like,
but I'm about to miss Manson, so I got to go because it was Ozfest, and there was a second stage band.
I had
And,
only
yeah.
I'd only seen the video for Sugar a couple of times, and I was like, "This is fine," but then like I saw him live, I'm like, "Okay, this is really fucking good." And that's why I bought Toxicity as soon as it came out, and then I sort of stopped caring. I have not bought anything they put out since.
Fair.
I stopped caring around the same time they did. I lost interest in System right when Surge did, which is worked out well for me.
Fair.
I'm not the one who's been disappointed for the last 20 years.
His relationship with his brother-in-law interests me.
I can't even imagine.
No, because
I can't even imagine.
Serge is so diplomatic about it,
Yeah.
but you can tell that there's.
I don't know how you respect somebody in that situation. Like, here's the thing. I could see, like, loving someone. They are family. You love them, right? I don't know how you respect them.
Every time the topic comes up about his brother-in-law being a right-wing chud, like he goes to that love and that we're family thing, and 2, he latches on like anchors to the fact that they agree on the Armenian genocide, right? And that they have the same belief about how that was bad, and that they want to make the world like reckon with it, right?
I mean,
and so they have this one foundational like.
you grow up with someone, you start a band with them, you keep you're not gonna jettison somebody at this point.
Right.
Although I do think it is probably part of the reason why they haven't done anything for the last 15 years.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you know.
I don't know. I mean, they still obviously see each other regularly.
Yeah. Didn't his brother like stand hard for like Viktor Orban too? Like some
I think
crazy
so,
shit
yeah.
like that.
He's just a right wing weirdo.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it would probably be more likely that like they haven't been doing anything because Darren can't get along with him.
Yeah, that would
Like, I
make
could see that just being like, I'm not his family. I can't fucking do this.
right. Yeah, I don't have to
Yeah, this is I
play
don't
nice
have
for
to,
fucking
yeah.
Christmas dinner. Well, you know, like I
We'll
don't.
never know. I know
Yeah.
it is weird that like System is one of those bands where when they don't release anything, the default is to blame Surge. Just like when Tool doesn't release anything for 13 years, the default is to blame Maynard.
Right.
When, like, in Tool's case, he literally shows up when they've recorded the entire album. And then he, like, writes and records his vocal lines in, like, 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Right at the end. He has no part in the writing process otherwise. Same way with The Perfect Circle. He shows up, writes his lyrics, sings his part. That's it. He doesn't actually write the music.
That's fair. Yeah. But I thought he was a genius who uses math and everything he does. No, I'm sorry. I hate Tool fans. It's just,
I like Tool. I do not like Tool fans.
Right?
So what happened?
God.
What did happen in the last? What? How long has the last week been?
It's been a lot. So I mean, we got the Trump's trade policies are again making headlines as usual. The stock market today was just a rough and tumble because there was all this confusion on where the tariffs were going to be in the tech market.
No.
So the Dow is not doing well.
I was curious to see what the phrase "permanent injunction" was going to do.
Oh.
Yeah.
What happened?
The was it the U.S. International Trade Court? 3-justice panel unanimously ruled that all of his tariffs are illegal and unconstitutional, and they have issued a permanent injunction.
Oh, so wow.
Yeah, permanent injunction. It was a Reagan appointee, an Obama appointee, and a Trump appointee.
Oh, let's see this. Yeah. Trump sweeping global tariffs blocked by federal court.
Yeah. Permanent injunction. Effective
the U.S. Court
immediately.
Of International Trade ruling. Oh, wow. By blocking the entire...
Like they specified effective immediately.
I mean, therein lies the thing. He's been using this law from 1977, which is for like emergencies and like it's supposed to be very narrow. And
you know what? You could have made a case for declaring an economic emergency in the early days of COVID. Mm-hmm. Like the first half of 2020, you could have easily been like, this is an economic emergency. We're taking drastic measures.
Right.
Now, granted, tariffs would not have helped that problem at all. Not that tariffs really help much outside of exceptionally specific and narrow circumstances where you're trying to specifically help one industry.
Right. Or like you have an economic emergency in that let's say there is a large trade partner that is now like stealing intellectual property or holding fucking, U.S. businessmen hostage or something crazy, right?
Just unhinged
nonsense,
something. Yeah.
Something geopolitical, something that you need to deal with. You hit them with a high tariff to hurt their exports.
Put them in their place
a little bit. And cripple their economy temporarily to bring them to the table to deal with the problem, right? Sure, I guess. It's a lot like sanctions, right? You can do that shit and it works. But this is just madness, and it's this like sweeping, like ignoring of like basically every trade deal, every treaty that Congress and the Senate have had to sign off on. Like, again, we have a process for these things, and it's not just
we
the
have
president by fiat.
We have a trade deal that he negotiated with Mexico and Canada.
Right, that he's now
just blowing up entirely.
And the funny thing is, like, complaining about some of the pieces of that trade deal are things that he negotiated into place, and he was then using as leverage for why we needed these tariffs, like the milk thing with Canada, right? The dairy. Canada doesn't have a massive tariff on dairy products. What they have is a quota system. Like, so up to a certain point, it's incredibly low or tariff-free, if I'm not mistaken. It's like zero.
It's zero.
Like,
it's
zero.
It's essentially nothing.
Yeah. And it's the gap between what the Canadian dairy industry produces and what their consumers buy, right? And so that gap, which is a lot of money, but it's not a massive amount, is tariff-free. And then everything over that is tariffed at a high rate. Trump negotiated that in exchange for discounted prices on oil. right?
Right.
Like, we get much cheaper oil, and it's a huge imbalance. Like, we buy way more oil than they
Buy milk.
buy milk from us. And the difference being is that that's the trade-off. So we get a lot more oil at a huge discount in exchange for a small amount of dairy. And the tariffs are just to make sure that the U.S. market, which we have about 100 times as many dairy farms as they do,
Right.
doesn't flood their market with cheap dairy. Because we already subsidize our dairy industry. The government also, that's a problem. We subsidize our dairy industry. We pay farmers to throw away large amounts of dairy and cheese to keep the price stable.
Right.
Right? Like, we do that shit. And so American dairy farmers could just be dumping that on the Canadian market, putting all of their dairy farms out of business. It wouldn't be beneficial to either country.
No.
So in exchange, we get this really good, well-negotiated piece, which it's like, hey, look, one of the things he got kind of right in his first term, and now he's using it as leverage to blame them for trade policy and trade imbalances. It's like stupid.
It boggles the mind.
Yeah, I mean, like everything he does boggles the mind.
That's true. That's fair.
Which, yeah, so what do we got after today? So, yeah, and what's Trump's response to this?
I have not seen a response from him on the injunction yet.
Okay.
I think he's too busy flaming out over Taco.
Oh, yes,
I think Taco broke him too much
Oh,
for him to
shit.
notice. He was hit with a permanent injunction on his keystone fucking economic plan.
Right, taco trade. That's the new word of the week, isn't it? The taco trade. That's the new
You
phrase.
know what? If that is not the word of the year,
Right.
For Merriam-Webster's, I don't know what else would be.
So the taco trade, it stands for Trump always chickens out. It's been used by Wall Street traders like constantly.
Basically, as an excuse to just kind of ignore his influence.
Right. And traders, what they're currently doing is using his stupid pontifications and the dumb things that he says as reasons to buy when stocks dip, right? And knowing that he's going to cave. Like, it's basically...
he has every time.
Right. And it's knowing that, hey, every dumb thing he says is like a pump and dump, right? It's market manipulation at its worst. And they know he's going to cave. They know he's going to chicken out and reverse policy or change his policy. And so they start buying and selling based on that calculation. And it's been working for traders like gangbusters. Like, it's not been good for retail investors like you and me, right? I don't have a lot in the market, but the money that I do have is down like a lot.
I have not looked at the 1401 that I still have in a long, long time. So I don't know what that's at, but I can't imagine it's happy.
It's like, yeah, the things that I had money in are
Although
not.
I'm going to be honest, the last time I looked was before Biden took office, so it's up overall a lot.
Yes,
I just don't know where it's at.
I was having a good couple of years, not like woohoo, but like, like 10 to 15% annually for a couple of years there, doing pretty good. And, a few things only growing like a couple percent and a couple things losing, but no big deal. This year, since he took office, like, it's been a roller coaster, and like, it's down, like, my total portfolio is down like 28% on the year, which,
cool.
Thankfully it had some growth before that, but like, thanks, Trump.
This particular 401 is from, like, I think that one I would have stopped. My company changed that I was working for in 2013, so it's just been sort of sitting there for the last 12 years, doing its thing.
But man, that response to being asked about the taco trade thing,
like,
absolutely.
Is that the angriest we've seen him?
The
most upset.
Yeah, I'll give him credit because he sounded almost calm, but like, there was definitely like an agitation it was under his skin. It was just like, I'll give him credit for
not going full fucking goofball.
Right, because it looked like basically there was like some agitation under the skin. He wanted to go full fucking angry, and he still was an unhinged lunatic in this. Like, basically, you asked me a nasty question like that. Our country was dead cold. It was cold. It was dead. Saudi Arabia says we're hot right now.
It was in the early afternoon, which is when you're in that kind of dementia. That's when you're going to be at your most clear.
Yeah,
your clarity is like if that question had been asked 2 hours later.
Oh man.
He would have just ripped off his diaper and started flinging poo.
But yeah, just the unhinged response, like talking about how he even gave away the game. That's called negotiation. You start with a ridiculous number and then you come down, like.
Interesting.
So you're admitting that you cave and that what you're doing is
strategic caving.
Right, strategic caving, and that. The European Union didn't want to meet, but then they called him. They wanted to meet, but then they didn't want to meet, and then they did, and then he set a date months in the future because they were refusing to meet. It's weird. Like his answer was all over the map, kind of self-contradictory.
Each sentence contradicted the previous one,
right?
Which that's pretty impressive.
Like
especially when you're not trying.
Yeah, it just absolute insanity. I think that's going to get under his skin for the next few days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think it might actually get under his skin to the point that he doesn't fully appreciate that permanent injunction the way he would otherwise.
Right.
I haven't checked his Truth Social today because I have some tiny value of my own mental well-being. But I wouldn't be surprised if he has said anything, it would be on there. I'm amazed they let him just have unfettered access to a real device. Like I wouldn't like they could give him like an adult looking version of a fucking play school phone, and he could just mash buttons and think he's tweeting. He'd never know.
If we gave him a fake internet, like a self-contained Twitter clone,
we could just see it from like a fishbowl from the outside. It's like, oh, he's flaming.
Yeah, that would be great. Like, you could give him like 1 million bot followers, right? That click, that like, and respond to his bullshit. Like, just give him a clone, like a Truth Social clone.
I mean, it is Truth Social.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Does do any real people other than him use it?
Not that I know of, except like right-wing grifters.
But even most of them were they were just happy to go back to Twitter.
Yeah.
Once Twitter decided that being a full-fledged, wide in the open Nazi wasn't a deal breaker for TOS, a lot of them just went back. Like
there's a lot of cross-posting. People on Truth say the most unhinged things because Twitter still has some terms of service. Yeah,
theoretical terms of service.
He gutted the shit out of all that stuff. But
you could, if he were to ever lose Twitter, you could find yourself in trouble.
Yes, yeah.
Retroactively.
And some of the bots still flag some content. So they go over to Truth to say the most unhinged things.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's basically just a following Donald Trump's personal blog mixed with lots of advertising for shit that, dick pills and fucking survivalist shit and fucking herbal supplements. It's nonsense.
Healthy.
Speaking of which, the Trump administration backtracks on Harvard foreign student policy. Harvard now has 30 days to respond to the administration's demand that they make a this is a fun one. Notifies the school that the student exchange visitor program certification would be withdrawn, and gives them 30 days. Your school has 30 calendar days from the date of service of this notice to submit written representations under oath and supported by documentary evidence, setting forth the reasons why SEVP should not withdraw your school certification. If SEVP certification is withdrawn, your school will no longer be approved to enroll or continue to educate non-immigrant students. Let's see. Notice comes 1 week after Secretary of Homeland Noem announced that she has ordered the termination of the school's certification as a result of your refusal to comply with multiple requests to provide the Department of Homeland Security pertinent information while perpetuating an unsafe campus environment that is hostile to Jewish students, promotes pro-Hamas sympathies, and employs racist, diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. You have lost this privilege. So basically,
30 days is a long time for Harvard to come up with as many ways as possible to say, go fuck yourself.
yes, it is. And they probably will. And that's nonsense, that list of reasoning. Like, the school is not unsafe for Jewish students.
No.
Not at all. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism.
No. Not even close.
Not even close. Even saying that the state of Israel has no right to exist because no state has a right to exist isn't anti-Semitic. That's just
idea that criticizing the state
principle.
of Israel is anti-Semitism is inherently anti-Semitic.
correct.
That's how that works.
Yeah. Like, you are being anti-Semitic, you
I'm
assholes.
allowed to criticize any government.
Right?
I want to, because criticizing a government is different than criticizing a people.
And governments.
And let's be honest here. When it comes to like rights to exist, countries don't have inherent rights to exist.
No, they don't.
They exist or they don't. Like if Italy collapsed tomorrow, it would cease to exist.
It's not a philosophical rights question.
No.
Like, individuals have rights.
Peoples
have rights. And, like, entities that people create can have a right. Okay? But they don't... It's not an inherent, like, set of rights. And those rights are implicit... are responded to and based around the type of entity, group, or individual that they are, right? So a person has a right to exist because we exist. I exist, therefore I am. I have that intrinsic right as a human being. No other person has a right to take that away from me, right? An entity, on the other hand, may or may not have a right to exist based on the circumstances, right? Like, you know...
and
under U.S. law, for instance, a company has a right to exist if it follows
certain
guidelines. But a country...
And then, like, when countries cease to exist, especially in the modern era, it's because they have caused themselves to collapse.
Right.
They have rendered themselves extinct. They have done it to themselves. And Israel's policies broadly, but specific to the Palestinians, guarantee their collapse.
And now...
like, you can't do this forever.
Now, if you're relying on kind of like an international law argument for a country's right to exist because of the way that we
like recognize
them and borders and the structures and strictures of a state, right? And what they can and can't do under, you know, treaty, right? Well, sure, Israel as a state has some legitimate right as a state to exist. It doesn't have a right to determine what type of government it is or isn't as an inherent, like, right to stay static within that, because the people of a nation have a right to change that.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it can change the nature of its state and government by the will of the people. So it can collapse, its government can fall apart, etc. But the borders that it currently occupies, says it controls, aren't internationally recognized as theirs.
Right.
They're way beyond the borders of Israel.
Everything that they've accrued after 67.
Yeah, everything they've accrued after 67, not theirs. They also are in violation of, like, damn near every international treaty for the treatment of refugees, migrants, occupied populations, right? Like, Israel has less of a right to exist than the Palestinians have a right to utilize violence against the state of Israel. Under international law.
Yeah.
That is actually really clear. The Israeli government does have a right to defend itself from them.
When it comes to the use of violence, it's really just a matter of does the violence provide more utility than not violence in this instance?
Right.
Like, that's the only thing and that's situation specific. Sometimes violence is going to hurt your cause. Sometimes it's going to help your cause. You
Right.
have to decide that on a case by case basis.
But under international law, an occupied population has a right to resist its occupation. That is codified in law. Like, they have a right to utilize insurgencies and insurgent tactics. Now, that doesn't mean that the state doesn't have a legal right to utilize force to stop it. Like they're both basically like, yeah, you guys can do your thing, but the state actually has more responsibilities for operating within international law than the occupied population does. And it should, because they're not party to a treaty.
It should be a criminal matter against individual perpetrators.
Correct.
Like if you are one of the people who engages in a specific violent act, then you would be culpable.
Yeah.
Not everyone.
Not your entire population.
Yeah. Like, and the idea that like toddlers are fair game.
Yeah. No. It's
which just some of the rhetoric has been impressively deranged. Just jaw-droppingly unhinged.
Right. But I love that the administration adds in the whole like racist and illegal DEI program. Like that's, come on. It's one, not racist, and two, not illegal. You fucking assholes.
Yeah.
Like you know it.
Private institutions can have their own policies regarding that stuff. That's how private institutions work.
Correct. And
public accommodations can be different. They're governed by different rules. But private institutions.
And attempting to balance out inequity, right, is not inherently racist. Like,
no,
it's still a meritocracy. Like, that's the thing that these assholes like never get when it comes to Harvard, right?
Yeah.
Or any of these institutions.
You got to work your ass off no matter who you are.
Right. And we have not had quotas since the 80s, right? Those have been illegal since the 80s. So we are still in a meritocracy system, right? Except for legacies. That's the funny thing is legacies and people whose parents can buy an endowment or
tend not to be minority students.
Yep. And they're like 40% of the enrollment of the Ivy League.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if you want to talk about affirmative action, mostly for white people.
They have names like Bush and Rockefeller.
Right. And so, but for the rest of the student body, like, they just utilize identity as a factor when comparing against their total enrollment, right? And whether or not somebody who is qualified, it makes the cut or not.
Right.
That's it. Like, you take two individuals who are almost identical in every fucking way, but one of them grew up in a middle-class suburb somewhere, and they didn't have to like do like that fucking, Job Corps shit or anything like that. They just played hockey, like, and the other one like grew up minority in an inner city with a single parent, right? And their grades are the same. Like their essays were equally good, like everything else. But the one did like Job Corps and was part of, a bunch of like at-risk teen programs because, they possibly, were running down the wrong path, etc.
Yeah.
That makes their story more interesting.
Yeah. Plus, let's just be honest, like,
and they've done more to achieve getting in.
A kid who gets a 4.0 in like a North Philly high school had to work harder to get that 4.0 than a kid who went to my high school.
Right.
Like it takes more effort when you have less facilities to get this to achieve the same level of excellence.
Yes, and in large schools and large high schools and middle schools, actually just large schools in general, in areas where there are issues with like crime, drugs, poverty in the surrounding area, right? You tend to have a few other things working against you. You have, and I mean this in not just the resources for the school, right?
Right.
But you're going to have more disruptive students. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to have the risk of gang violence in or around or near your school. You're going to have attempts for gangs to recruit students.
You're going to have a more aggressive police presence in your school.
Right. You have a more aggressive police presence in your school. You have a higher risk of, of being bullied, being harmed, like all of these things. And again, the disruptive student factor is a big one. Like, getting a 4.0 in a class, right? and getting, fucking straight A's in a class when you have, let's say, another student who's going down the school to prison pipeline route in there with you,
throwing chairs across the room.
Exactly, throwing chairs across the room and getting into a fist fight with another student or the teacher while they're trying to learn, and then you acing the SATs.
Yeah, that's a fucking feat.
Right.
That is impressive.
Yeah, and you did it without a tutor, while the other kid that, when Harvard's looking at the two applications and one of you clearly had a tutor for the SATs and had somebody help them write your fucking essay, right?
Yeah.
And the other one, they barely fucking got to that point in life, right? Because of all of the factors against them.
Barely any support system, probably working almost full time the entire time just to scrape by.
They're at fucking Taco Bell at night while in high school during the day, and yet they're still finding time on the weekends to volunteer to fucking help younger at-risk students.
They worked harder than you.
They did. And so, yes, you guys had equal grades, but you look at that one kid of color and you go, wow, that resume right there, you did some things.
Yeah.
And that's how they get in. That's what they mean by the holistic approach.
Colleges and universities, especially the elite ones, love a good personal story.
Yeah.
They love it. That's why they have an interview process.
Right. And
if it were just about grades, they'd look at your application and that'd be it. And yes or no, they could do it by algorithm.
And the only place in corporate America where identity directly comes into play when it means hiring, right? For the as far as I've ever been able to tell, notice, see, look around anywhere, it really focuses on one very narrow thing, which is who are we going to put in charge of our diversity programs, right? Community outreach stuff that they do, right? And trying to make sure that they hire within neighborhoods and communities when they put locations in those neighborhoods and communities, like banks, right? When I worked for Wells Fargo, we had branches in a part of town that had a very large Hmong population, right? So obviously we wanted at least a couple of employees in the bank that were Hmong.
Had some familiarity with
right? Because do you know the percentage of the population outside of the Hmong community, and specifically just the Hmong community, which are a subset of the Cambodia, Vietnam region, right? How many people outside of the community speak their language?
Not many.
Not many at all, even in those countries that they live in, right? Cambodians, don't learn the Hmong language, right?
Yeah.
So you need somebody who understands them, right? Understands a little bit their culture and how to speak to, somebody. Because if Hmong grandma who came in from the fucking end of Vietnam flotilla and never really learned to speak much English comes in to try to open a bank account, right?
You need somebody.
Need somebody who can talk to her.
And you need, if you offer a good or a service, and you want to reach out to specific communities that you have not gotten a lot of business from in the past, it helps a lot to have somebody from those communities in your company to tell you what their needs and wants are, so you can best accommodate them and get their business from them. Exactly.
So we haven't, since the quota system was shot down in the courts, and even then they didn't, there was always merit involved, but since the quota system was completely shot down, the only areas we've ever seen it come into play are as a factor in a holistic approach to get you into school, check, and a factor in trying to reach out to specific communities within the corporate world, check. That's it. That's all we've ever seen. Right. The rest is just simple enforcement of, equal opportunity laws. And they have these DEI programs to make sure that they're complying with the law. Because guess what? When this administration is done gutting DEI, right, attacking corporate America, and they all end their diversity and equity programs, right, in an effort to basically give affirmative action back to white people, right, which is what this is trying to do. 10 years from now, when this feckless, incompetent administration that can't get shit passed in law, right, is out of office, all of these companies are going to be 10 years behind on hiring in a way that complies with equal opportunity laws.
Right.
Right? That's the, therein lies the hiccup here.
There's
is
this-
the companies that cave to it now, 10 years from now.
There's this weird sense that this soon-to-be 79-year-old, somewhere in the mid-stages of the same dementia that killed his father and his grandfather,
Right?
who lives on nothing but Big Macs and Filet-O-Fish sandwiches, is going to be the one in charge indefinitely forever. I'm not even going to be surprised if he doesn't make it to 2028.
Yeah. I think we're getting a clone deepfake of him, like in V for Vendetta.
That's not outside the realm of possibility.
That's that is my, that's my thought behind it. Is that we're getting something like that.
Let's just do a face swap with him and Vance.
Right.
He sounds different.
Yeah. Or my Equilibrium. Oh man, I loved Equilibrium. Remember Equilibrium?
Yeah.
Yes, love that movie.
Haven't watched
Gun
it in
It's so
years.
dumb, but it's so great.
I haven't watched it since it first came to. I can't even remember if it was VHS or DVD. It's been so long.
So Musk has now confirmed his exit from Washington. I don't believe it.
I don't. I think it's the exit of his public facing
Right.
involvement in politics, but I think he's still going to be involved. He just doesn't want to be the one being yelled at
Yeah.
about it anymore. It is interesting that he has complained about the big beautiful bill,
Right.
and its impact on basically whining that it was undoing all of the good work that Doge had done, which you hate to see it.
Yeah. I mean, Doge didn't accomplish shit other than making a mess. I mean, actually, no, I take that back.
We might have siphoned a lot of sensitive data to the Russians.
We might have, yeah.
We might have.
Also, he did give himself. He lined himself up to cancel the investment in rural broadband that was going to competitors, right?
Yeah.
And get those contracts himself. He was able to
do that. He was able to shut down a lot of investigations into his companies.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Which that was probably worth the $250 million he paid to get Trump installed.
Yeah, and he
by
really
itself.
did just shit the bed on tearing apart the agencies in particular
Specifically, yeah.
that were investigating his companies. Those got the lowest headlines because they're not. I mean, they're not big and flashy. They don't really we care about the ones that regulate the shit out of all of us, right?
Yeah.
And so we focus on that stuff. But firing a bunch of people at the FAA and the FCC.
When, the NTSB investigating Tesla for its cars doing crazy shit bursting into 5,000 degree lithium fires, seemingly at random.
Yep. And getting rid of.
What did I say? It was 17.2 times more likely to explode than a Ford Pinto.
Yeah.
1,700%.
And people were harping that internal combustion engines explode at a higher rate, and it turns out that was just a lie.
Yeah.
Yes, they. Obviously, an internal combustion engine can blow up, and you have a gas tank.
There are more per year because there's so many more
right.
of them.
But it turns out that Teslas in particular, not other electric cars, just Teslas. Other electric cars, if you submerge them in water,
don't spontaneously combust.
Yeah, they could if you submerge them in water for too long. Right?
Yeah, they could. They're more likely to just brick themselves.
Yeah.
Or in the case of a Rivian, be washed a quarter of a mile away and just start.
Yeah, Rivian and those Chinese that one that you can't buy here but is all over South America now from China. I can't remember its name.
That's the thing. Even if you could buy it here, it's got that 100% tariff, it's still a $20,000 car.
Right.
After a 100% tariff.
Yeah.
And you see the interiors of these things. They look like the inside of a fucking spaceship. It looks like the future.
Beautiful. What else do we have in the news?
It's been a week.
It has been.
I feel I don't feel like as much has happened this week and previous ones.
No, I mean, we're still reeling from last week's bad news, like that Georgia case. Jesus Christ. Is that still going?
That's, to my knowledge, that's still ongoing. All of the lack of response to all of the tornadoes that hit Missouri and Kentucky is ongoing. They, as far as I'm aware, FEMA still hasn't shown up.
Right. Oh, Jesus. Yes. Oh, my God.
Arkansas has been told they're on their own.
Yeah, FEMA's almost broke. That's right.
Yeah.
Already. Like,
Yeah.
the Department of Homeland Security has somehow simultaneously blown through all of its budget. Right? Like they're on track to run out of money like 3 months before the end of the fiscal year, and yet simultaneously have diverted funds that they're statutorily required to spend away from a ton of projects like cybersecurity, etc. Like we have no cybersecurity spending right now. Like it's a mess, and they're just focusing entirely on physical border enforcement and deportations.
Yeah. You know what? I understand that saying this is wrong, and that wishing this makes me a bad person. I'm okay with that.
Okay.
I hope that this is the year. This is the year that a truly monstrous, almost off the charts Cat 5 takes out Tallahassee.
Same.
I want Tallahassee to have to like deal with a direct hit when the federal government's response is going to be go fuck yourself, there's no money.
That would be amazing.
I want the entire city submerged.
It would take a Cat 5 hitting it dead on. Because it's so far inland.
I want biblical plague levels of destruction to befall the city.
Now,
if sulfur could rain from the fucking sky during this Cat 5, please allow it to happen.
The nice thing is Tallahassee is probably in like one of the most hilly and valley areas of the state, right? And it has like high points and low points all over it. So if it did get hit with a like record-breaking wet Cat 5, like a big fucking
dumping tons of water,
like
a slow-moving storm that just parks itself,
it would be like mini North Carolina, like not that bad.
But devastation. Devastation like what we saw in the Carolinas last year is just
awful.
Unfathomable.
And I could see how it. Like the thing about it is like I could not fathom that level of it, but having lived there for a few years, like it was like I was picturing these things because a lot of those rivers, like the French Broad River, that had that record swell, like it frequently had these flood moments, right? Because you get the heavy rains from tropical storms would sweep up, right?
Yeah. And
then when that happened, like the river would go from being like 10 feet below a bridge, like you drive over it and it was 10 feet below, to splashing up over. Right, and it would do that for a couple of days, and all those little creeks and tributaries
would just do the same thing.
Would do the same thing, and you'd have this little fucking creek in your yard, like literally like 3 inches like of water trickle, like that was dry like 80% of the time, and then a couple of days a week, like or a couple of days a month, we'd get some water through it, when it rained, and like when heavy rains came, those things would go fucking 3 feet wide. So it's like
an actual creek.
Yeah, so you're like, I know how this is happening because this whole area is just one giant watershed. Right?
And so much of the terrain is like the topsoil is like it's just topsoil and then rock.
Yeah. So
there's no absorption going on.
Exactly. So there's no absorption. That topsoil turns into a muddy slough, right?
It just detaches from the rock base.
Yeah.
And just slides right down because some of the grades on that just. You don't understand until you're there and you're dealing with it. You're like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This is a fucking hill.
Yeah. Like real hills. Like, if folks in Florida don't know like what a real hill is like. But yeah.
There are plenty of places in like Asheville where the elevation difference between the one end of the street and the other end of the street several blocks away is like 15 times the total elevation difference across the entirety of the state of Florida.
Yeah, there are roads where you're going taking a 5-block walk and like just outside the edges of the downtown area, etc.
Like you're hiking up a hill like this.
Yeah, it's like that.
You're like actually physically like planting your foot and hoisting yourself forward.
Yeah, especially that back area by like the their civic center, right, and the library over there. That set of hills that way, it's real fucking steep. Like, it's amazing. And yeah, some car like I had this shitbox car for a minute there when I was in that area that like just wouldn't fucking do some of those hills.
The Airbnb we were staying at, it was basically like a 45-degree down to a road and then another 45-degree angle up the fucking driveway to park.
Yeah, you get shit like that where you're like uphill both ways exists in places like that because you both ways you have to go uphill. Yeah. It's awful. So
and that you add a fuck ton of water to that, you end up with half of West Asheville washed away, buried under mud and sludge and debris.
So we won't be seeing that for Tallahassee, but Tallahassee you could use like 2% of that just to teach you a lesson.
You could use a cleansing. Think of it as an enema.
Oh man, God, Ron DeSantis. Did you see his executive order to like make it so that gold and silver were legal tender in Florida?
Like, what are even the logistics of that? Like, I know allegedly it's only for certain purposes, but like nothing about the regulatory structure or framework of how you would do this makes any sense to me.
None.
First of all, like the states aren't allowed to.
Right. The Constitution is pretty clear about that. Like states can't make their own currencies.
And allowing gold and silver would count.
Yeah, like, you know, like if the state wants to create an exchange where it buys and sells gold and silver at market rate for cash,
cool,
they could do that.
I mean,
it seems like a really inefficient.
I don't understand why we would do that, but like that would be not unambiguously illegal,
right? like
what's to say there? It's just full on, unquestionably unconstitutional.
Yeah, like. Sure, you want to trade it as a commodity, you can do that. And if you wanted to, as a state, create a mechanism that made it easier and even maybe like incentivized or made payments, like you could make it a payment platform. It wouldn't be legal. The gold and silver wouldn't be legal tender, but I could say go to a place like a state-owned AMSCOT, right?
Yeah,
and hand them. Here's gold.
Here's some gold.
Right.
I panned this myself in the Everglades.
Some gold, and they could weigh it, convert it to a dollar amount.
And they give you that.
And either give you that or like transfer that into like a digital bank payment system or make a payment to somebody for you.
Yeah.
They could do that. That would be fine. But that doesn't seem to be what they're trying to do. I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here.
Who just has like... Who has all of this gold and silver of just sitting around to use as money anyway?
Fucking weirdo Ron Paul fans from fucking 2007.
These are not the people we need to accommodate.
No, we don't.
First of all, they're all fucking old weirdos.
Yeah, like the youngest of them are like my age.
Yeah.
Like they were... I was weirded out by the ones my age that became really big Ron Paul stands back then because I was relatively young then.
Yeah.
And
what's wrong with you people?
What is... Like, this guy, like, he makes so much sense. No, he doesn't. No, he, like, yeah, I may agree with him about war, sure, but even Ron Paul doesn't agree with Ron Paul about war. Like, look at his voting history. Like, you know? But yeah, fucking weirdo gold bugs, like, I don't get it, man.
I don't get it. Maybe it's just a distraction because his charity's being investigated by the authorities.
He's taking so much goddamn money.
Yeah.
Like, he is such a crook. Like, just, it's going to be interesting, again, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when we're looking back at this era of America, if we still have a functioning country and we're not a cyberpunk dystopia, like,
I mean, I think we're going to be a cyberpunk dystopia run by corporations no matter what. It's just, what will that dystopia look like?
Fair.
Like how much personal freedom will you be restricted? Will your personal freedoms be restricted in that dystopia, as opposed to be like them just like letting you pacify yourself with vices,
right?
Or will they try to restrict all the vices, like in some sort of like Christo-fascist way, moralizing way? Because like I could see it going either way.
I mean, I'll be honest, I wouldn't hate the world of like cyberpunk if like, you know, mass scale, like large governments collapsed and things like scaled down to like more smaller city states, and there was like more restriction in some ways, but way more lawlessness in others because, like, you know, everybody has access to, like, you can't create encryptions that can't be cracked, right?
Yeah.
Because that's basically the end game there. So everybody has access to ways of, like, faking and, like, creating, like, false identities on a daily basis if they just have the fucking credits. And if you kill somebody, they're not going to catch you because they don't have the resources. Cool. Let's bring it on. I'm here for it. I doubt we're getting that, though.
No.
Like, no, it's going to be some fucking Christo-fascist fucking AI-driven fucking synergy. They're going to use words like synergy, and we bring fucking, like, you know...
Grok has determined you
principles
had
together.
an impure thought.
Oh, God.
Extermination shall commence in T-minus 15 minutes. And then they fucking send a fucking bolt of electricity to the chip they implant in your brain that fries your fucking cerebral cortex.
We may be getting to a ceasefire in Israel and Hamas. Like, the U.S. has maybe gotten a deal worked out. Like, this administration is worse than the Biden administration on this. Like, they don't seem to be able to get anything accomplished. At least Biden was able to get a few fucking prisoner exchanges done.
He was at least able to negotiate a ceasefire that Israel could fucking violate immediately.
Right.
Like, that's something.
Right. Like, but no, Trump seems to have nowhere to go with this.
It's because he doesn't care and he doesn't know what he's doing.
Right.
Like, he doesn't care. The thing that blows me away the most about everything related to Trump is the idea that anyone believes he cares about anything other than himself.
Ooh. Speaking of.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, how do you look at him and his policies and say, he cares about me. He wants me to do well. That's what this is about. No, he doesn't.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit one way or another what happens to you.
No, but he has this weird, like, he has this bizarre way of trying to, like, target communities to like signal to them that he cares. Like, and it's all through dumb optics shit like this one. His pardon spree. Have you heard about that?
Yeah, I heard about the guy who diverted payroll taxes from his employees to his private account to the tune of $10 million.
Yeah. It is bizarre because he's like talking about how, like, you know, some of these people are all about politics, like the NBA young boy, the union leader that flooded safety measures during Corona pandemic, who got, like, it's all signaling to these little mini bases, but it's like just dumb because some of these guys are like fucking genuine,
just fucking
absolutely terrible people,
and yet the Tiger King languishes.
And yet
languishes in federal prison while his undocumented husband is carted away out of the country.
How dare he betray the Tiger King? The Tiger King helped keep MAGA together in 2020.
He's never going to recover financially from this shit.
Yeah, no, he's not. But the Tiger King helped keep the MAGA movement together after COVID.
It kept us all distracted
Yep.
when we were trapped at home during COVID. I appreciate it for that.
I do too.
Is Joe Exotic a good person?
No. Net bitch
Is he-
Carol Baskins.
Is he uniquely and perfectly American?
Yes. Yes, he is.
He might be the most American amongst us.
You're not wrong.
Like he is a little bit of everything that goes into making this country what it is. Just the unchecked confidence, the enthusiasm for the grift,
Right.
the love of methamphetamines.
You know, I've always, one of the funnier things to me about, like, guys like Joe Exotic, like the weird right-wing Christian conservative white trash drug-addled fucking crooked weirdo sphere, like that, like,
Which is a very specific but very real group of people.
and they're all over the place.
Cuts across all demographics.
All demographics, like, but like there's a weird white trashy across all states. There are those groups of, like, blue-collar, white trashy, drug-addled weirdo fucking hillbilly fucks, right? Yokels, right? And they exist everywhere. And they all, every single group of them is heteroflexible at least.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's amazing.
Absolutely.
Like that's one of the things that has always caught my attention about them is that they're always like they're always heteroflexible. And
that's why they have to make it weird for everybody else.
Yeah.
That's they're uncomfortable.
All right.
They're uncomfortable with their heteroflexibility. Uh-huh. So they got to make it everybody else's fucking problem.
Fair, because and they are sometimes the most like out there flamboyantly, like, and not in like a pro being gay policy, like not like politically so, or as a like, you know, I'm out and proud. None of that. No, it's just like I'm gonna make your husband suck my dick while we have a threesome.
Yeah.
Because I
can.
And you guys need a place to live, and I'm going to pay you $800 a week. Well, now, actually, it's $200 a week. I'm going to keep the other $5. I'm going to put it in my savings account for you, and I'm going to let you have it after I deduct all the money you owe me for cocaine.
Yeah.
Like, and you just it create like that shit happens, like, and I've seen it across the country.
Yeah.
And like,
yeah,
it's amazing.
it was everywhere I've ever lived. I have seen that shit.
I have been in those shitty fucking like cracked out truck stops across the country and like
a lot of love
shitty motels and like you see it everywhere, and it's like it amazes me because that's
and I think it comes back to them essentially viewing every human interaction as purely transactional. Like it's all transaction all the time. Even the smallest, simplest human interaction has to have some sort of like tangible exchange occurring where they benefit over the person they are exchanging with.
Yeah.
Like infinitely.
I would agree with that. They're so weird, so fucking creepy. You know, and but they're everywhere, and they're all across this great country of ours, and they're almost always, they're always right-wing weirdos. They never, even since the fucking 90s, I've never run into any of these folks who like voted for Clinton. Like it's just, they're always, but they are always so like into drugs and alcohol and loose women and gay sex and like.
For them. Not for anyone else.
Right. But you would never, like, you line up all the things that they like, and at least one party out of the two is at least semi-tolerant of those things. Even in the 90s when they were hyper-conservative, they were at least like, we'll give you a slap on the wrist, not throw you in prison, right? And
they always tell on themselves.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that porn ban that Mike Lee was trying to push. Like, it was so weirdly specific in so many ways. It's like, I know what porn he is trying to keep himself from being able to view.
Right.
Like, specifically, I know what porn he's ashamed of looking at, and that's why he's doing it.
Right?
Like, it's just weird that it's always a tell. You could be out and happy, Mike.
Yeah.
You could do that. You're allowed. Miss Lindsay. You could do that.
Lady G. Oh, God, Lady G. American doctors are looking to like. There's a slew of like doctors like asking to like working on immigrating to Canada.
Cool.
That's cool. Like to avoid the the U.S. administration.
Apparently, there was a second phase of a clinical trial for a universal flu vaccine, shot that would have included bird flu. There was a $780 million grant that had been given to Moderna for the second phase of the trials. It was just unilaterally canceled.
Oh, wonderful.
So that's not happening. It's already been through the first phase of trials, 300 participants. Phase 1 trials were complete. They are moving on to phase 2. It would have just been a one-and-done flu shot covering all variations of the flu.
Wow.
Basically past, present, and future.
That's...
Unless the flu were to mutate to the point that it were no longer an influenza.
Thanks, America. Self-inflicted wounds. They're great.
And here's the thing. The amount of money that the U.S. government was pumping into it, like, they would have been, like, on the patent for it. Like, that would have been something that we did that the entire world would have to be, like, excited about.
Yeah.
Like, it would have helped our reputation internationally.
But you see,
which is good for us.
Despite Trump's rhetoric about how great America is, and internationally he claims that things are and how hot we are, because
it's amazing.
It's amazing. Isn't it amazing that the only places where he's hearing this are places where he's got business dealings in like absolutely anti-democratic countries, like
Saudi Arabia,
Qatar. Like, you know, the Qataris are giving him fucking $400 million planes.
Speaking of that plane, apparently,
yeah,
they did not offer the plane. He begged for it.
Of course he did.
Apparently, he begged for it. They haven't been able to sell this thing. Plane's 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trying to sell it for 5 years.
Okay.
No buyers, because it is built to the gaudy specifications of the former crown prince.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's like
there's no buyers.
It was like his flying palace. It looked gaudy as fuck, and it cost $500 million, and so nobody wanted it.
It was just
right.
costing maintenance money sitting on a tarmac.
Uh-huh.
And apparently he was really smitten with it, and he basically begged for it, and they're like, okay.
Wow.
So yeah,
and I love the lie that they've been telling. Well, that actually belongs to the American people. It's not a deal. It belongs to the American people. It's like, the deal is for it to transfer from the government to the Trump Presidential Library, and not the National Archives that operate them.
Right.
Like, it isn't to transfer to the National Archives. So,
to his Presidential Library
Foundation. So, for those who don't know how they're structured,
for his use.
Yeah, exactly. So, for those of you who don't know how presidential libraries are structured, because I'm sure most of you don't.
Most of you probably get to the point where it's like, what are these things and why?
Yep. I've been to a couple. I love them.
I haven't been to any.
I've been to a couple. I love them. And I've got a cousin that works for one.
Okay.
Right. So, as I mentioned before in the past. But, so the National Archives operates a big chunk of them. But it's mostly the document side, right? Mm-hmm. So they act as librarians and custodians of the information, and they do the FOIA requests, and they determine whether or not things were classified, not classified, what was or wasn't under executive privilege, right? They do that job as if they're still working in the government, because so they're assigned to that space, right? And it's operated in part by the National Archives, but the rest of it is operated by a independent foundation, right? A nonprofit, a charity, if you will, right? That's set up by the former president or their family, solicits outside donations, and that's how they get built. That's how they get funded. Mm-hmm. That's how then they operate as like museums, right?
Of the presidency.
Of the presidency, partially governmental, partially private, like, you know, with a cost sharing, because the government doesn't want to fork over all that money for it. And the former president gets to build them to their specifications.
And if you were going to research a specific presidency, that's the sort of resource you would use.
Yeah.
Because you would have access to all of these documents and information that you wouldn't be privy to otherwise.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of documentation there. You also, if you want to go, you can go and see like just a lot of things about that presidency, because it's basically a museum of that president's terms, right? That walks you through the history of it. And it's really cool. I got to listen to a bunch of tapes, like, because they just have them on the wall. You could actually sit there and listen for a while, where you get to listen to like the recordings of the conversations LBJ was having about like getting into the Vietnam War.
Wow.
Like with the Joint Chiefs. And it's amazing because in hindsight, knowing the history that I do, you realize that like in those tapes, they're lying to him. Right?
Yeah. like
it's not like they don't say, haha, here's where he lied. Like they don't, but you're listening to it and you're listening to what the Joint Chiefs are telling him.
Shit. that was wrong.
And you know what was happening. You're like, they were lying to him. Like, and that's amazing because you can hear his hesitation. He's like arguing with them, like not wanting to escalate the war. And they're like, Mr. President, we have to. Like,
And
it's
it was
great.
all based on a lie.
And it's all based on a lie, yeah. Like, amazing. So I love presidential libraries. But
They're an excellent way to like understand how the system works.
Yeah.
Like the nitty gritty, the making the sausage of a presidency.
exactly. But the president and or his family and or trustees, people he sets up and appoints after they leave office, basically run the private side of it. And you don't. That's not going to belong to the government. It's going to belong to the foundation that owns the library, which is in a partnership with the government. It's a grift. It's
Yeah.
theft. Like,
It's theft.
yeah, it's theft from the
theft.
American people. Because if they're giving us a $400 million plane, it belongs to us. Like, that's how it works.
Any other? Do we have any good news?
Oh God, good news. Do we
Do you have
have?
any good news for Sam? I was thinking about something too, and I'm gonna put this to. I want feedback from our listeners.
Okay.
I was thinking that maybe we could more formalize the structure of the news segment, where we do like a general news segment,
Okay.
and then we do like we just for a brief period focus on like the shit specifically that Trump did.
Okay.
So we can have like news. So we're not hyper focused on him the entire time. We have a
All
section
right.
that's just like his bullshit for the
Okay.
week, and then like Sam's good news.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I don't oppose the idea. I've been wanting to do. I mean, obviously we haven't worked on our structure very much because
we haven't. No,
we're bad at that.
often it's Wednesday night. I'm like, what the fuck are we talking about tomorrow? Like,
Yeah, I mean, we probably could add more structure to this endeavor. I'd like to hear from the listeners.
I want listener feedback. I want
Yes.
engagement. Give me engagement.
Engage with me.
Engage with me.
Fucking talk to me, people. I want to hear
Just tell
from
me
you.
what you want.
Tell me what you really,
I
really want.
might give it to you.
What you want?
I
What
might
you
give
want?
you what you want. If you tell me what that is. See, I can't give you what I don't know you need.
Yes, and I want to fulfill your
Yeah.
needs.
I mean, that's why we're here, right? We are needs fulfilling machines.
Would you like me to fulfill your needs?
You have needs. They need fulfilling. I know. Oh, I know.
Hey, the Tampa Bay woman, the gal from St. Pete who was on Love in the Spectrum actually found love.
Oh, good.
That's good news for her.
Good for her.
Yeah.
That's sweet.
Let's see, what else do we got? Any good news?
I know something I'm excited about tomorrow night. The vegan restaurant,
Okay.
like a block and a half from the bar, is doing a record release show.
Oh.
It's 3 bands. Heaven's Gate is it's the Heaven's Gate record release show for their new album. Heaven's Gate is Tony from the band Municipal Waste.
This is over at what? Good Intentions?
Good Intentions, yeah.
Okay.
Paul, the drummer from Cannibal Corpse.
Are they doing it inside?
Yeah. And I don't know how this is like.
Okay.
They're shutting down the restaurant. Last call for food. The restaurant normally closes at 10. Last call for food on Friday is going to be 8:15, so they have time to shut down and set up.
My actual main concern it actually has nothing to do with the restaurant side of it, or the bar side of it. Has everything to do with the absolute god awful acoustics in that building.
See, that's the thing. You can overcome that with volume. I've seen it done.
It's not. So it's not that the. You've been in there, right?
Oh yeah,
like
it's clangy and loud.
it is so clangy and loud. Like
I'm real curious to see how this is going to go.
that building
I'm excited.
makes every little noise hit its rounded because it's like an old hangar like garage.
It's all fucking metal.
Yeah, it's one of those
like a metal sheet ceiling.
Yeah,
roof.
it's one of those old school like half spherical hangar garages. It's like a tube. You know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, yeah, for the audience, it's like half a sphere, tubular, and it's clangy and metallic in there. Every time I go in there, I like my brain immediately goes to like noise reduction mode and like looks around at what I would do to like cut the sound in there because by like 15 minutes in, I've got a headache and I cannot hear the person I'm having a conversation with.
It is the loudest restaurant in St. Pete.
Yeah,
like
and
it's
so
not even close.
I have no idea how they're gonna have.
We're gonna find out.
Oh, this is.
I'm so excited.
Please record some of this so I can hear what this sounds like.
I'm so excited.
This is gonna be.
There's also the possibility. I don't know the setup. Like, I know that they've done club nights in there before.
Permanent
like
hearing
inside.
damage is going to happen.
There's a reason I carry earplugs with me on my keychain everywhere I go.
People's fillings are going to fall
Like
out.
high-end $50 a pair earplugs go with me everywhere. Because I don't want to go completely deaf.
That's fair. That's fair. Let's see. I don't know if there's any good news in the world, really. I haven't been seeing much of any.
For the first couple of weeks, it was easy. There was always someone like, "Oh, that's exciting," and I have not been excited much lately.
Yeah, I haven't.
And I'm disappointed in that.
Same. I would like more good things to happen in the world.
I would. It shouldn't be hard.
No, it shouldn't.
Should not be hard.
But apparently it is. I mean, we watched Charlie Kirk get like dismantled, just fucking destroyed.
Him and Jordan Peterson having like their worst debates ever the same week.
Oh yeah.
Fucking beautiful.
Yeah, like
fucking beautiful.
Like I respected Jubilee less after that, but like what I will give it is, it was the inverse of the Sam Seder debate in that like everybody who went up knew what they were talking about.
Yes.
And that is again one of those distinctions where it's like, look, right versus left, Dem versus conservative, whatever way you want to look at it in America, right? There is a stark fucking difference every single time I see the quality of ability to parse information between the two sides.
Yeah.
Right? And like the left has its morons and they're all over TikTok, whatever.
They're mostly on TikTok.
Yeah, they're mostly on TikTok. But
I don't run into those people in the real world often.
Yeah, no. But like their ability to parse information and come up with a grounded argument that has fucking facts, reason, logic behind it, and like a solid like emotional appeal, because emotion you can't really just cut out. Fuck off. Anybody who says it doesn't belong in a debate is wrong.
Yeah,
like, it matters.
They end up always having like morality and reality on their side.
Right. Like
and they know how to use it.
And so they get on and they're fucking debating Charlie Kirk, and he just gets fucking student after student fucking wrecks him, and then that professor just fucking shredded his ass, and he's like, "No, we're going to disagree." It's like, you can't. It's international law, you idiot. Like, you know, it's like,
I mean, like well, the point where they're like getting into a little discussion about like the logistics of how conception works, and he's just like, "It's magic,
right?
Magic.
Something magic happens.
Something magic."
And he's
happens.
like, "No, it doesn't create new DNA. You're wrong."
Meanwhile, you got Jordan Peterson like, "What do you mean by believe?
Right?
I don't know what the word believe means. What do you mean?" What is truth?
And every time he agreed to a term, then then as soon as it was like, all right, cool, the argument happens, then he takes it back. Well, no, I do not agree. That's not what I mean.
You're. How am I supposed to have a conversation with you if we don't define all their terms to my liking?
All right, well, we'll get there. Okay. Oh, well, now that we've defined the term to my liking, I do not agree that you are allowed to make the argument anymore. What? Like, that's how it came off. Like,
it's funny.
Because he would change his mind as soon as they agreed.
It's funny how he has based his entire career on a rabid hatred of postmodernism. And every single thing he says relies entirely on being postmodern about it.
Yeah. And he can't define postmodernism very well at all. I mean, he can never define anything very well.
It's like that really awkward debate he had with Zizek. About Marxism. He's like, I read the Communist Manifesto last night.
Yeah.
I was a refresher. I don't know what these words mean.
And that was all he had ever read of Marx, apparently, was the manifesto. Like, they're having a debate about Marxism, and the only thing he ever read was the Communist Manifesto, which, look, I get it. The Communist Manifesto is like the most assigned piece of political writing.
It's short, it's accessible.
Yep. There's a reason that it's assigned so much in different fields.
It's not a 3-volume scholarly tome.
Yeah.
Constituting thousands of pages about Lenin.
It's short, it's accessible, and it's assigned a lot in history classes because it was one of the most influential books of the 20th century. It was written in the end of the 19th century, but it shaped the 20th century. The conflicts and union battles of Europe, the way that World Wars I and II went down, were all shaped by
the way capitalism developed itself as a response.
Yes,
like,
as a response to it. All from that book. So it is assigned because of its historical value. And then it's assigned by some like history of econ teachers, which a lot of economic students take. to read so they can get a basic understanding of what people were thinking. It's assigned in sociology classes because of how it influenced society. And so that's why it's so assigned. It is one of the most influential books in history.
But it is kind of just basically Capital for Dummies.
Yes, and it's a political it's a pamphlet.
Yeah.
It's a manifesto trying to get agrarian, barely literate workers. It was something that you give to a literate
it's designed
trade worker to read to illiterate trade workers.
Yeah, it's designed to be read and understood by as many people as possible.
Yeah.
As easily as possible.
And so and it's got a bunch of really interesting prose. It's very political, and it was so that one union organizer who could read it to a bunch of people who couldn't.
Fire them up.
Before
you know it, that union organizer is a little Ferengi boy.
Well played. I like that. But yeah, that's why. But
he was the best, man.
If you really want to argue against Marx as like Marxism, like have a core debate about Marxism,
you have to read more.
You have to read more.
You have to read a lot. And you have to study. You have to.
Yeah.
You have to be passionate about the idea of refuting his points.
Right.
And willing to put in hundreds of hours of work.
Yeah. You have to know what the word Golgotha means.
Yeah.
If you don't know what the word Golgotha program means, you will not be debating Marx. Reckon his fucking letters between him and Henry George. Come on, know some things, fuckers.
Just know anything.
Yeah.
Especially if you're going to hold yourself up as some sort of expert scholar.
Right.
Maybe know a thing at all. I'm not asking much. Know a thing. Just one goddamn thing. Anything
yeah.
Anything else positive in the world?
Man, I mean, I wish upon a star. Is there anything cool going on in science?
I saw some quick entertaining video of Macron getting the shit slapped out of him by his wife.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know what he did, but I'm guessing it was French and annoying.
Yeah, that's what happens when you marry your nanny.
Yeah. Don't do that. No. Stop.
Oh man, I mean, Diddy's definitely going to prison.
For a long time. Man,
the wall-to-wall coverage of that is so. I pay no attention to it, and it still leaks into my world.
I have come to the realization that outside of the truly deranged shit Jaguar Wright accused him of, everything you've ever heard about him is probably true.
Yeah,
even the craziest shit is probably true. Just the number of people he probably had killed.
Right?
He invented the West Coast East Coast feud so he could kill them both to make money.
Do we have any confirmation of that in the case? Is that what's happening?
It seems to be what probably happened, but we have not specific.
But also the details of the sex parties that are being talked about are so graphic. I never thought was it Ja Rule he yelled at for hogging the dick?
I can't even keep track.
It was somebody. It was what? Quit hogging the dick. Get over it. Bring it over here. And then they're doing lube slip and slides.
Forcing his wife basically under threat of violence to have intercourse with male sex workers she didn't want to have sex with. So he could watch and record.
Yeah.
So then he could blackmail her with it later if she got out of line.
But also
and I still see people's why didn't she leave him? It's how?
Yeah,
apparently one time she did manage to get away, and he showed up with 5 of his bodyguards, and she tried to throw herself out of a window rather than dealing with him catching her.
Wow.
Dude's a monster.
Yeah, no shit. Jesus Christ. He's a monster who apparently had way too much money, power, and influence over the entire rap industry for way too long.
For being a guy who was not a talented performer himself.
Yeah.
He was good at finding talent, and he was good at hiring talent.
Yep.
But he did not himself have talent.
No. And
Not artistically, anyway.
his forays into actually making music were not good. And they mostly, like, just rode on Biggie. Like
and his
remaking Biggie songs.
His most successful attempt at a song made a shit ton of money for Sting.
Yeah.
Like, all the money went to Sting.
Oh, and there was that Godzilla fucking song he did with Jimmy Page.
Yeah, that was another thing where they sampled it without permission, and then part of getting permission involved giving Jimmy Page all of the goddamn money.
Yep.
Except for the part that they paid Trent Reznor to remix it, which is apparently the only artistic thing he regrets in his entire career. Said it's the only time he ever felt like a literal whore
That's
in the
fucking
music
amazing.
industry. Was but also, like,
he did so many things.
He was paid enough for that one remix.
Uh-huh.
He was able to build an entire new recording studio. Just with the money from the remix of that one song.
I'd feel like a whore too, but I'd take the money.
Which, that's how much money they were just... Like, the money they were throwing around for, like, little to no return on investment is insane.
It was...
Like, these are people who just had no concept of what money was after a certain point.
Yeah, and I, like, everything Puffy made, like, that they threw all that money around to get, like, behind his brands, his fucking company or whatever he was doing, right, was basically to keep him popular.
Yeah.
Like, it was just
It became
PR.
It became real apparent that Puffy was not interested in money. He was interested in the accrual and maintenance of power.
Right. And he had
the ability to dictate what other people did for him.
Yeah. And he utilized that to make him lots of money.
Right. But the money was secondary.
Right.
It was the getting what he wanted out of everybody around him at all times that really mattered.
And I was recent years old when I learned that he actually came from money. I never knew that.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that makes sense.
Yeah,
now.
his father, who died when he was 2.
Right.
Was an underling for Frank Lucas in New York. Mm-hmm. Like when the drug trade was becoming like a national thing, where
right.
like you could be based in New York and making money in California.
Yeah, and so yeah, he came from some money. Yeah. He had money.
But his dad was 33 when he was shot, and Puffy was 2 years old, I think.
Fair, but yeah, that is amazing. He's going to go to prison for a very long time. I'm just impressed. I don't know who else is going down after this. Like it seems that he had so much on so many people.
Yes, but also like so many of the things that he has on other people were coerced.
Right.
So like a lot of what's coming out about other people paints them as victims of him.
Yeah.
Which they are.
Right.
I mean, he victimized a shocking number of people.
Right.
Like people like you wouldn't even think he should be able to victimize, but just based on like they should have more power and prestige than him.
Jennifer Lopez?
Yeah, and he was still just completely
Jennifer Lopez, one of
them.
the biggest fucking stars on the planet, massive voice, huge amounts of money, and like she still wouldn't talk up about him. Like, that's amazing.
It's on the level of like Jeffrey Epstein. Mm-hmm. It's very similar, except he didn't Epstein himself.
Do you think he's gonna? Or do you think he knows that he's going to have a lot of power in prison?
I think he will probably. I think that they have a vested interest in making sure he doesn't, so he can be prosecuted as an example.
Fair.
I think that the people he has dirt on, who are going to be damaged by any information that comes out, are going to be damaged in a different way because he victimized them.
Right.
And they're just not ultra wealthy, powerful elites either.
Right.
Like
some of them are, but
like not to the level of like what Epstein managed and how he was able to like cast a wide net of people he was like tangentially associated with, just enough that you couldn't look at the names on like his fucking whatever and like know who was doing what, like because he knew so many people.
Yeah, I mean, Epstein knew
that
everyone.
Insulated him. Yeah.
Like somebody I know said a while back, this is why you should never trust anybody who wants to be photographed with everyone.
Yeah.
Never trust anybody who is always being
really
photographed
keyed up
with
on like I
everybody.
need to get yeah.
Yeah, if they're in every photo with everyone and that, like every celebrity, every fucking famous person, every business person,
they want it to be a problem for you someday.
Yeah,
potentially to
Like-
be photographed with them.
like that's and it's like, you know, that's actually really good advice when you think about it, because yeah, like anybody who gets in photographs with every politician and every fucking billionaire and every corporate leader and every industry leader and every celebrity, you know damn well like that, yeah, if they do something horrendous that involves other people, like as a, like, you know, they facilitate crime or something
You
horrific.
put yourself in a position where you can take down people who had nothing to do,
Yeah,
who are afraid that you can take them down even though they had nothing to do with what you were doing, even if they had no idea what you were doing
yep,
is what you were doing. They're at risk as soon as the first story comes out. They're like, oh shit.
yeah.
And then like it's circle the wagons and you gotta.
Did you? Oh, speaking of which, totally unrelated, but kind of related. I just caught this little clip of an interview with Kevin Smith,
Okay.
and he was talking about how one day he'd been like trying to get something done with Dogma for a long while.
Oh, yeah,
but
with Weinstein with the rights?
and Weinstein calls him. Like, and starts talking about like, hey, I just realized I've got Dogma. I own this. We haven't done anything with it. Do we want to like maybe do a show or a sequel or something? Like they started getting into a conversation, right? And so they're getting into a conversation about it. And 3 days later, shit you not, 3 days later, the New York Times story drops, right?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh. And then so he's having a conversation with a friend about. He goes, yeah, Harvey called me last week. And he goes, you know, he was trying to find out if you were a source. Like, what? Like, yeah, you took his call. Like, if you were a source, you wouldn't have taken his call. He's calling everybody to see
Who picked up?
who picked up. And that's amazing.
Well-
He's like, I didn't know anything. Like, he was my boss. Like, I knew that he cheated on his wife, maybe, allegedly, but, like, I didn't know. And, like, you look at Kevin Smith, his movies didn't have a bunch of, like, hot, young, like, not powerful female stars.
Yeah.
Right? Like, his movies didn't have a bunch of that. Like, you know, Dogma, like, Selma Hayek and, or was it, Selma
Linda
Hayek.
Fiorentino was the lead.
Yeah, but who was the chick who played the angel?
Salma Hayek was
Salma,
her.
yeah, Salma Hayek and Alanis Morissette. Like, they weren't people Weinstein was going to target.
No.
And like, none of them were. Like, those were like the biggest women that he dealt with. Like,
Yeah.
So, like, Weinstein wasn't pulling his shit around it, but yeah, he was seeing who picked up the calls.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And now Harvey has a gangrene of the perineum.
Couldn't have happened to a
His
nicer guy.
taint is rotting. Apparently, there's nothing you can do about this. Eventually, it just fucking kills you.
How do you get gangrene in your perineum?
It's got a specific name. I'm not exactly sure how one manages that, but
Wash your taint, guys. Make
gangrenous.
sure do not let your taint
perineum.
get gangrenous.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. I want to know. I got to know how this happened.
Gangrenous taint. There's a fucking that is a grindcore band waiting to happen. Gangrenous taint.
Sam, that's your good news. Harvey Weinstein has a gangrenous taint, and it's going to kill him someday.
Soon.
Painfully.
Yeah, and
I'm
it's gonna suck.
His taint is rotting away.
His dick and balls are septic.
Your asshole would get septic too.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
sprawling taint, spreading gangrenous taint.
He's gonna end up with gangrenous prolapse. He's gonna fucking, like a sock, unfurl.
Like, it's just pink
With
sock rotting out of his asshole. This is gonna be amazing.
Couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
No, could not have happened to a nicer guy.
Sometimes I find it hard to believe karma doesn't exist.
You know what? The one question I have now is, how's Matt Lauer doing?
We are laughing.
We are laughing. Let's take a quick break and go into the next segment.
All right, we are back
We are.
from a break you didn't see.
You, through the magic of editing, only know that
We're outside in the blistering Florida heat for about 10 minutes.
walked the dog, had a cigarette.
It's 90 degrees today. right now.
So it's really weird because we kind of went from like chilly to a few like warm days and then hot. Like we skipped that whole period of like the low 80s.
While the rest of the country was getting sort of a cool down, I had heard like 2 weeks ago that we were going to be getting a super heat wave. They were calling it. Nah, that's what we're in. It's heat indexes in the triple digits already, and it's not even June.
Right. Like we skipped that whole like low to mid 80s thing that you usually get in May. Like just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Now it's hot. I don't know.
Oh, it's hot. I'm just glad my AC works.
Yep. Thank God, because it wasn't.
Real curious to see what my electric bill looks like.
Yeah.
For May.
So today we want to talk about the looming weird dangers in the economy and how it seems kind of disconnected from people's daily lives.
Yeah.
But that isn't going to last forever.
No.
And it's not lasting now. That's the it's.
The problem we ran into is that last year and the year before, when the economy was improving,
right?
Like by every possible metric, you would define economic, good economic growth as being right. It was better. We were improving. Things were getting better month over month.
Yep.
But people were not directly feeling it in their day-to-day lives because certain necessities are just too fucking expensive.
Absolutely.
And some of it was like supply chain caused inflation. Some of it was just the market taking an opportunity that it saw to increase prices.
Yep.
Because profits record highs across all industries.
And there's a few things at play. And now, like, you look at 1980, 1990 spending versus today, right? And things have inverted. So necessities have gone way up.
Right.
Housing, food, education, healthcare, vehicles. Those have now vehicles actually kind of weirdly they've actually weirdly remained stable. Just like technically they've gone down because we keep putting more features into them that make them more expensive.
New cars have not gone up like crazy.
But yeah, relative to inflation, they're actually really stable.
The used car market has kind of gone fucking insane.
Yes.
But for new cars, it's basically what it has been.
Yeah,
compared to the rest of the economy.
And they actually had trail behind in inflation. It just seems that they're getting more expensive because they're getting more expensive. But like realistically speaking, like a new car costs the equivalent of like 80 grand or 60 grand in like fucking 1970s dollars, like that equivalent.
And the reason that boomers and elder Gen X have trouble understanding this in terms of like real world what your dollar is worth is luxuries have plummeted in price in so many ways while necessities have gone up.
That's what I was about to get to.
A TV 40 years ago was like 3 months rent.
Yeah.
If not more. So it was a huge expenditure. Now it's like I could buy a TV 10 inches diagonally bigger than the one I have. I could get a 75-inch TV for half my rent.
Right. Yeah, and you can buy 3 standard for your house televisions, like, a one that's of a decent size for your living room, one's for your bedroom, one for your office or your kid's room, right? A small one.
A small one in the kitchen.
Right. Small one in the kitchen. You can buy 3 of them for less than a month's rent.
Yeah.
Like, easily.
Yeah.
Like, and if you're buying off brands, you're not buying like top end brands, you're not buying all the bells and whistles, you can buy fucking 5-6 of them for a month's rent.
People complain about it, but game systems adjusted for inflation, like the Atari 2600 is like $2,000.
Yeah.
And the fact that I remember buying
Nintendos were $99 or $199 or something like that for the NES, right? That was $100 in 1985.
Yeah.
Like,
that's what, like, that's like around 700 now?
Yeah.
Something like that. The cheapest, adjusted for inflation, the cheapest gaming system of all time, the GameCube.
Oh, yeah.
The GameCube adjusted for inflation, based on what it was sold for compared to now, would cost $362.
Wow.
Which, reasonable.
Yeah.
Reasonable. But people complain about the price of video games. When I bought the original Final Fantasy for the NES in 1990,
it was $39.99.
It's $49.99.
Okay.
You do the math and you do the inflation calculations. That is a $123 game.
Yeah.
In today's dollars.
Like I only got one 2 games a year as like a Christmas or birthday present for like my whole life. Like, and I went and bought used or I rented games.
I rented games a
lot of games.
A lot of games.
And when I was a young adult, I like bought like used games from pawn shops and shit like that.
Yep.
Like, because that was
places like M&M Games that we have here in town, which is a great place. I don't know if you've ever been there.
I have not.
Oh, it's got like used games for every system you can imagine, and then $8 open to close, all you can play arcade, unlimited credits.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
They
check
got a
this place
bunch
out.
of arcade machines, bunch of like old 80s and 90s arcade machines.
Fuck yeah,
It's
that's great.
it's up right near where Haynes meets 34th.
But like luxuries and entertainment goods and heck, the cost of eating at restaurants technically
It's gone down.
has gone way down.
It's gone way down.
Adjusted for inflation. Even though, like, yeah, you're paying $15 for a fucking Cuban these days, right?
Right.
And you know, it used to be $5.
But it was $5 35 years ago.
Exactly. When that was $18.
Yeah.
Right. Like, you know, so it's technically down.
It's not down by much, but adjusted for inflation, it is actually cheaper.
Yep. And the cost of food, the food revolution, food has gone way down over the last 90 years.
I know you're in a similar situation to me as someone who lives alone,
right,
and feeds just themselves. It is essentially no cheaper for me to go to the grocery store and cook every one of my meals than it is to just eat out.
Yeah,
all the time.
It's not much of a savings.
Just because it's hard to like.
I've gotten one of those meal delivery things because it like saves me like.
Yeah, that's nice.
Because otherwise I was Ubering food all the goddamn time.
Yeah, and that's
and so
$35 a pop.
Right. So I got one of those meal plan things. I'm like paying like $12 to $18 a meal depending on whether or not I pick the steak that week. Right. You know, and that gives me some options, and I feed myself dinner that way.
Are they oven or microwavable?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
I might have to look into that because I don't have a microwave, but I do have an oven that technically works.
Yeah, they're you can do either.
But I mean, as it stands.
Also, if you need a microwave, I have a spare one.
I don't know that I do. I've gotten by without one for like 12 years.
Gotcha, fair. Actually, I don't want to give up my spare one. The reason I don't want to give up my spare one is because the microwave I use the most, because it's just the one that's like above the stove, is like just a microwave. My spare one is actually a combination microwave, convection, oven, air fryer, and I don't use it often.
I have been considering getting an air fryer.
Get yourself one of the combo things. They're not that bad. Like they do everything, so you can do like they have 3 or 4 option ones.
I think maybe once in the last 10 years have I gotten something home that I bought at the grocery store and I realized it was microwave only. And then I had to like research how to cook it in the oven.
That's fair.
Which worked. But if I'd have noticed, I just wouldn't have bought it.
It's fair.
But that's the only time I've been like, I wish I had a microwave right now.
Microwaves. Actually, that's a...
they were outrageous. I was watching The Price is Right this morning.
Yep.
There was a microwave that was part of one of the showcases, and it cost $399 in 1973.
Wow. Yeah.
$399 microwave in 1973, and that is like a $2,800 microwave now. They're less than $100.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my mother had this ridiculously like for its time, like it was a big deal that she bought this really nice microwave.
Yeah, I remember we had one of the first ones where it just had like the popcorn button and the pizza button and the reheat button and like
and it was like 1985 and like it was like partially like a gift from like my grandparents or some shit. You know what I mean? Like family put in money so they could have this thing, and it was ridiculously expensive. And like in comparison. I can't remember. It was like an O-Star or a Q-Star or whatever the fuck that brand was.
Oster,
yeah.
Oster.
Oster.
They still make stuff.
But like Oster microwave.
But now they're like the cheap, shitty brand you see at Walmart.
Yeah.
They're like the dumpy. I'm cheaping out on this piece of kitchen equipment company.
Yeah, but they were huge back then. They were like the best.
Yeah.
And like
outrageously expensive compared to now.
Yeah, it was like $200 in 1985 money.
Right.
Like, which again, you're buying a microwave now for $99.
Yeah.
Like,
For a decent one.
For a decent one. You can buy, like, the fancy-ass fucking 3-setting thing I bought, like, or, 3 or 4 fucking function microwave, because it's not just a microwave, it's an air fryer and a convection oven and a standard, like, it does all this shit. And it's a name brand, and it cost me, like, $350.
Yeah.
Like, which...
But that's the problem we run into. Like, the equipment that allows you to cook your food is proportionally, exponentially cheaper than, like, the food you might want to cook with it.
Right. But even then, weirdly enough, food has actually gone way down in price. Like,
for a lot of things, yeah.
For like, in general.
Especially
like,
frozen foods.
Frozen foods, yeah. But we have way more access to food and everything else. It's housing and healthcare that are really killing us. And, like, those two, like absolute necessities are just insane. The median age of a home buyer in 2007, they were born in 1968.
What year was the median home buyer born? Now, 22 years later, 23 years later.
1968.
This is a problem.
Yeah. The age of the median home buyer has increased 17 years in the last 17 years.
And you can do the math. Like, you can look at, like, straight full-on minimum wage employment in 1980.
Mm-hmm.
You could probably buy a house.
Yeah. Right.
Making minimum wage in 1980.
A minimum wage worker in 1980, in order to afford to buy a home, miraculously, only had to basically have the equivalent of 10 extra hours of income every week over their 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
In order to do that and maintain a household with a family of 3.
Yeah.
Right? That's insane, because that means that basically if your wife was working part-time or you were pulling overtime or you had a second job, everything at minimum wage was affordable.
Whereas now, if you make minimum wage, you are living with at least 3 other people.
Yeah.
And you are still totally destitute all the time. Always broke.
Like, I saw this great, like, response to a headline, which is, did millennials kill the spare bedroom? Right? Like, as if it's another thing that millennials killed, quote unquote.
It's amazing. They're like fucking serial killers at this point.
And somebody responded, "You mean my roommate's room?" Like,
yeah.
Oh, you mean my roommate's room? Like, yeah, there are no spare bedrooms anymore because
every single room has to be rented out everywhere all the time.
And even when, fucking in 2009, when my ex and I bought our first house, like, we rented out our 2 rooms, like, pretty frequently. Like, we always had at least one tenant, like, renting one of our 2 extra bedrooms, and sometimes we had 2, right? Like, just, it helped. Like, it helped cut the costs, and we did that from 2009 to 2015, right? Like,
yeah,
because, while we had 2 incomes, it was nice to have the extra money because housing and that was then. That was
and also the cost of housing specifically has exploded over the last 5 years.
Oh yeah,
just out of control explosion, pre-COVID to now.
Yes, absolutely. And
COVID changed everything.
But it exasperated a issue that was already looming, right? So in 2007, when the boom was at its peak, when the bubble was at its peak,
when I was working in real estate.
Yep. We were actually still building houses slightly below replacement value. So, like, we were, like, somewhere around, like, for every 100 houses we needed to build, we were building 90, right? At that time, roughly. I was looking at some math on that. So in order to create the same amount of home ownership in the U.S. going forward and reduce renting prices and keep them stable, right?
Yeah.
Like, relative to inflation, we were building like 90 for every 100 we should have been building. Okay? So that's a gap.
problem.
That's a problem. The 2008 crisis happened, right? we started building 20 houses for every 100 we should have been building. Because the crisis hit and destroyed a bunch of developers. Remember, fucking Florida, which was one of the last to recover, had all of those cookie cutter fucking subdivisions out in the middle of nowhere. All the McMansions.
Lennar got fucked.
And they were all sitting empty for almost a decade.
Yeah.
Right? So nobody wanted to build. And so then we're down we're only building 20% of what we should have been building. It's still not up to the same rate that it was before the '08 crash. Building in the U.S. is still further behind the rate that it was in '07 when we were technically behind. So we had 2 full years of not building at all.
At all.
Right.
Just nothing.
Just nothing being built. And then now we have not caught up to the same rate. So every asset out there, every housing asset is just accruing in value because people with assets have money.
And the people who already own, who bought before this happened, they don't really want it to change.
No.
The
only thing they're complaining about is because they're selling to upgrade.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why the median home buyer has gotten so much older, is they're selling to upgrade.
Because they can afford a $300,000 down payment on the next house.
Yeah.
Because it's just coming from how much value the home, their previous home increased.
Exactly. If you bought a house at $90,000, right? And it's now worth $300,000. And you paid it off because you've owned it for 25 years and you have almost no mortgage or a tiny mortgage, right?
Or you were taking advantage of the fact that your mortgage rate was low and you were paying next month's principal every month.
Yep. So you could do that. Boom. You owe nothing on this fucking thing. And now you turn around and sell it and buy a $500,000 house. You have $300,000 to put down. So your next house is only $200,000, and mortgaging $200,000 ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Especially if your income is, 160, 170, right? 180, 190. Cool. $200,000 house. It's affordable.
Yep.
So, especially when you put that much down because your interest rate is fucking nothing.
Yeah.
And so 30 years on that bad boy, and then you just, And so that is the status of the housing market, and it's insane.
The amount of building that we need to do is just... It's the sort of thing that you do really need a major public works push for, where it's just we need to build a lot of housing fast.
We have a massive structural problem right now because those with money and assets are making money and everyone else is staying stagnant. And so I was watching that FOMC, there's some clips from the FOMC meeting in May with Jerome Powell, head of the Fed. And there was a meeting with some business leaders and some bankers and the Fed. And Powell was being asked these questions, and some got real spicy because in the meeting they were talking about signs in the soft data versus the hard data. And there's a lot of uncertainty. Their basically answer is the answer to everything right now is we don't know. We don't know. And the reason it's that way is because they're about to see something for the first time that nobody's seen since 1982. And so no economist alive and operating in the policy sphere right now has a lot of experience with this because, they've all retired. And we barely got out of it the last time. And also the structure of the economy was fundamentally different then than it is now.
And we weren't fuck Ronald Reagan, but he wasn't a delusional, incompetent psychopath.
Right. But on top of that, we still had we were still the core manufacturing base of the world.
Yeah.
We were dealing with more competition popping up, Japan, China, right?
We also had a functional legislative branch.
Yep. So we had all these other pieces of the pie that allowed us to get out of it. But now everything is structurally different. And the thing that all of the soft data signs are pointing towards, soft data is little pieces of information, smaller reports, hiring, firing numbers, seasonal employment numbers,
right.
The earnings reports from companies, right? That sort of thing. Yeah. all that soft data is all aligning to show two fucking fundamental problems at the same time: inflation and unemployment increases. Rising inflation and rising unemployment, both of which we are heading straight towards.
You can't fix one without fucking up the other.
Yeah. And Powell's dual mandate, which is the Fed's dual mandate, is to keep unemployment low and interest rates and keep the economy and keep inflation low.
Yeah, keep it stable.
Stable. Okay.
Manageable inflation, because you're always going to have inflation.
Right. You want a small amount of it. You want basically like roughly the same rate of population growth.
Yeah.
Give or take. Like, because that way, when a new person is born and
there's
16 years later, they become like a working age teen, right? There's more money that exists for them to get a job, right? And like there's more resources being bought to allow them to survive to that point.
Right.
So as the population grows, you want to see similar inflation rates. It's easy.
Modest, steady, healthy inflation.
Yeah.
Is necessary. Right. Absolutely necessary.
Whether or not you like it.
I don't care. I don't know. That does not matter what type of economic system you were talking about.
Yeah. And you don't have to like it, because yes, it does mean that your money is technically worth less every time it happens. We don't have to like it. We don't have to love it. It's just a mechanism that happens.
When things are functioning the way they should, you end up having proportionally more money, though.
Right. That's part of the problem.
When they're working.
Because it's not working, and it hasn't been working for a long time, and it's been this slow progression to the financialization of everything within our system. Right? So he had no answers for, because they asked him, this is one of the spicier questions, which was great, which was, so, Jerome, how long are we going to keep ignoring the soft data before we decide to take action? And his answer was basically just, I don't know. We're going to wait and see. We have not seen the fundamental impacts or changes or the events and items take place that we need to in order to deal with it. You know what's funny about that? That's you. That's me. That's us. That's people. They're not talking about like just dollars and cents disappearing. Like the Fed doesn't operate like it does. Their numbers on a fucking spreadsheet. But the reality is that they base their lives off of the unemployment data, right? And like steep inflation matters to them in the core basket of goods.
Right.
And when you see that shit, you realize that that's you and me and our fucking food supply and the money in our banks and our jobs and our businesses.
Our ability to just survive as human beings.
Yeah.
Who were born into this.
Right.
Without our consent.
Against our fucking will. You were born, and you didn't ask to be born. You did not ask to be born into the economic and political system in which you were foisted into the world and convinced was the greatest thing ever, because you're a dumb monkey, you believe it.
And we've talked about this outside of recording, the fact that like you cannot have any system that relies entirely on the idea of infinite growth.
No.
Like just growth into the future forever. Like that's
like, and now maybe you can and have to modulate around a percentage of growth in order to maintain
you should be
the economy to the size of your population.
Yeah, you should be looking for a kind of like economic homeostasis though, where it's like the number of people is like taken care of by the larger economy, and you don't have the ability to have like one sector just outstrip
another. I mean, in a way, like, you know, as long as scarcity exists, we're going to have a problem there. There's a lot of abundance. We have got lots of abundance.
Right.
And
the problem with infinite growth, though, is that it promotes more scarcity.
Yeah.
Because you're demanding infinite returns on finite resources, which eventually you hit a brick wall.
Yeah, but so we are going into a period where we're seeing increased inflation and joblessness, like in small sectors, that's building towards hitting the hard data. And the hard data is fucking real people. And they don't have a fucking plan. I know what they're going to do. And I hate it because we're going to do it and we're going to need to do it. And it's because politically we're not going to do anything to fix it. They're like structurally, we're not going to do anything to structurally fix anything.
Nothing radical.
So they're going to quantitatively ease. They're going to print money. And now that's not going to help the inflation.
No.
But it's going to help the unemployment. And maybe like they can keep things going because central banks, they're supposed to keep things stable, right?
That's in theory.
In theory. And they do a pretty good job of it. Mm-hmm. But everybody's motivation is for keeping things stable short term. Because political lives.
Yeah, and we've stopped thinking 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years out entirely.
Yeah.
Like we don't think it's next quarter or nothing.
Right. One of the only industries in the entire fucking country that still thinks long term is the insurance industry, and that's because they have to have actuarial tables that go to the fucking like
70 years in the future.
70 years in the future,
yeah.
Right? And they have they still are operating under a bunch of old, really tight regulations from fucking the 1940s to the 70s, right? For now, yeah. And they've been curtailing those. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. They've been cutting back at that shit. But they still have some 1970s fucking regulations keeping them operating with enough liquidity, right? But they're the only industry doing it. Everybody else is thinking a quarter ahead at best, and it's
and you run into the problem. You've got too many corporations where the company can collapse, and the guys at the top can still walk away with these gargantuan golden parachutes.
They always do, and
they're destroying businesses left and right,
and
they're being rewarded tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for it.
The only thing that really angered me about the 2008 crash leading into the bailouts, the one thing that really, really pissed me off were the sheer number of financial executives that got huge bonuses and large payouts and no consequences. The fact that unions got fucked, pensions got screwed, right? Yeah. And the companies walked away. The shareholders walked away with more money. And you know what? No. These people fucking gambled our entire economy.
We should have gone full Iceland on their asses.
Right.
Prosecute all of them.
Heck, it didn't even have to be everybody. Just a few of the top people,
scare the rest into compliance.
Scare the rest into compliance, and then change the fucking laws, and not the version that we got. That
watch the federal government just wipe out a dude like Jamie Dimon.
Yeah,
just fucking obliterate him.
And Jamie Dimon still being one of the most influential people in fucking finance, and everybody turning to him on a regular basis is beyond me because he's turned into such a political hack.
It is interesting how we keep asking the same people who are habitually wrong the same questions as if their answers aren't always incorrect.
Yeah.
But we just keep asking, and you're not allowed to think outside of that little box of this dozen fucking learned fucking venture capital hedge fund motherfuckers.
And what they do is so galling, especially the venture capital, hedge fund, fucking private equity assholes of the world, right? The way that they'll go into a profitable company that owns, say, 300 restaurants across the U.S. Okay. And owns the real estate that they're on. They'll go in, they'll buy it with private equity, take it private, right? Then sell the land
to themselves
to rent it back to themselves at a higher rate, charge management fees, so they're basically making the corporation pay the private equity company for managing them that they own,
for the privilege of charging them money,
right? So they sell themselves the land through another company, and then they leverage the shit. They leverage the shit out of the whole deal to begin with, based on potential returns, and then they leverage it again, And then when the company is stripped for parts and they reduce staffing and
there's nothing left.
Nothing left, and it's insolvent. Then they file chapter on the whole goddamn thing, typically destroying the entire brand, walking away, selling the real estate,
writing off as much as they can.
Writing off all of that as a loss, and the banks keep playing that game, and everybody's winking and nudging, knowing because it's absolutely illegal and unethical for them to lend money they know isn't going to be paid back. But they know it's not going to be paid back because it's a game.
Pick any chain of any kind you like that has disappeared in the last 15 years. Mm-hmm. In all likelihood, this is why it's gone.
Yep. This is Toys R Us.
Jersey Mike's, which is a successful chain, was just sold to private equity.
Ruby Tuesdays.
Ruby Tuesdays.
They had the exact same thing happen in Boston Market. And Boston Market had another structural problem, which was that like they did like most of their fucking sales for the year in a 2-month period. Like
they did a lot of catering.
Yeah,
I think most of their money came from catering events
and the holidays.
During the holidays, yeah.
Like that's so that, but
they weren't really as functional as a restaurant, especially as a fast food restaurant. As
but they could have been more functional if they hadn't been owned by private equity that was not letting them expand, do new things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like these brands, and they keep getting bought, and fewer companies are owning fucking everything, while the investor class owns everything, while the upper middle class, the 20%, the top 20%, it's not just the billionaires. It's guys with a fucking net worth of like $1.5 million, right? Who like want their neighborhood to be quiet and enforce strict zoning and don't want property values to not go up and up and up for infinity. Like everything is catering to that top 25% of our fucking population. And they keep getting older. Like it's not a rapidly growing segment of our population.
These people aren't fucking dying.
Right.
Not fast enough.
And so it's a segment of the population that, like, generally speaking, like, we've always had that 20%, but like different people entered and exited it, right? But its age stayed relatively stable.
Right.
Now its age is climbing, like as a cohort. You realize, oh yeah, that's because basically people with money are staying alive and everybody else is fucking dying. Like, and no wonder we have a goddamn opioid crisis in this country. Yeah. And we're not doing anything to address the fundamental
any of the problems we have.
Structures of this. Nothing.
No.
We have 25% of the world's fucking prisoners for being 5% of the world's population.
That's not good.
And we're doing, and it's more expensive.
Yeah, we have more prisoners, not just per capita, but in terms of raw numbers.
Yep.
We have more prisoners than China, which has 4 times our population almost.
Correct. Yeah.
Like 3.5 times our population.
Actually, I think it's.
Is it more? We're hitting 4?
Somewhere in there. It's 3 to 4.
Over 1 billion.
Yeah. I think they have like 1.2 billion people now, which would make it like 3.5, almost 4. Yeah, you're right.
Almost 4.
Yeah. So yeah, like we have more we have more raw prisoners in the United States than any 2 countries combined.
Yeah.
That includes China and India, which have
between
combined
the 2 of them is like
5 times our population.
Yeah, between the 2 of them, that is like over
7.
3 billion people.
Yeah, combined they're like 8 times our population.
Yeah, combined they are like 1/3 of the global population.
And we have more prisoners
than both of them. Combined.
And we are the land of the free. We are supposed to have, because again, we are supposed to have more liberties.
That's why they hate us for our freedoms.
We constantly talk about China and its lack of freedom, right? And like, sure, don't get me wrong.
China has problems.
Lots of them.
Especially with like personal individual freedoms.
But man, they don't seem to be locking up nearly as many of their citizens as we are.
Yeah,
why?
and even if you believe that's because they're just executing everybody, still, like we know what the numbers are.
Right.
Like
their population is still growing.
Yeah, like they're not killing that many people.
Right. Like
even if they just shoot everybody, like that's still a conviction.
And Americans are not uniquely more criminal. Like because that is what our politics actually say about
We're more criminalized.
Right. But our politics suggest that Americans as a people are uniquely more criminal than the rest of the world.
Yes.
Like, and I don't believe that, but if that's the case, we need to rethink a lot about our exceptionalism and how great of a country we are,
and maybe ask
and
why.
our culture, right?
Because you can't even. We are too genetically diverse to blame biology.
Yeah.
If that's true, like if we are uniquely prone to crime as Americans, we are too diverse of a population for it to be anything but a cultural problem.
Right.
So you have to ask yourself, what is the cultural problem?
And
the answer is John Calvin.
right. Well, there's that. But I also think that the answer is that we have a massive income disparity in our country and a wealth gap, and to
the point where even people
criminalize poverty.
We criminalize poverty, but even people who like believe they understand the wealth gap in this country are like genuinely shocked if they see the actual numbers.
Yeah.
And like fully grasp how bad it is.
I mean, when I gave you that 1968 number yesterday, your face went,
yeah.
What? Like, yeah, like we have a structural problem, and I don't think we're going to address it. I think
and we also have this habit of making every negative impact the system imposes upon you a personal moral failure on your behalf. Like you did it.
Yeah.
Like we excel at victim blaming when that's mostly just blaming ourselves for things that are being done to us.
When people are unemployed after, even 2010, right? When people were like having a hard time finding work and everybody's doing it, you still heard people talking about how like it was like laziness and a lack of worth or moral value.
Weird job.
And like, the 2012 election, like Mitt Romney, like still being like the last like economic conservative, right?
Yeah.
And he was still very grounded in that, like that there's makers and takers, winners, losers, like moral failing. It's the economy is the economy.
47% don't contribute anything at all.
Right. He was still way grounded in that in 2012. And you're like, we just had the wealthiest people in the world blow up the global economy.
And become wealthier doing it.
Right. Become wealthier doing it. But in the process, destroyed, $2 trillion worth of global wealth for the middle class and the poor, right? Like a lost decade in retirement savings for the lower middle class, a lost decade in like work and income growth and raises, all of that destroyed because of that crash. And like I went from making over 50 to making under 30 after the crash for a while.
I was unemployed for almost 2 full years. That's when I went back to pharmacy tech school, and I was thrilled that after 9 months of school that I spent $12,000 on, I was able to get a $14 an hour job.
Right.
Like, that was life-saving.
Yeah.
That 14, and it was the beginning of the 7 worst years of my life professionally.
And that shit had nothing to do with a moral failure on your part. It had everything to do with the fact that
I worked at a real estate office.
Yeah.
And the market crashed.
And people destroyed the economy.
Yeah.
And left it so that there were 4 of us applying for every fucking job that was open.
Like shit jobs. The jobs that you say, it's like, that's a job for a teenager. I don't know why anybody's trying to thinks they can be able to get a living. You couldn't get fast food jobs.
Right. There were people who went from owning a business where they made $500,000 a year. Right? So they were affluent.
Yeah. Especially by those standards.
By those standards. But there were people who they weren't working for major corporations. They just owned their own decent sized business. They were CEO of a small company. They were making really good money, but they were also over leveraged, right? And when their company folded because the big fucking world fucking collapsed on them, right? They were working at fucking Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
One of the Domino's. I seen it.
One of the pharmacists I worked with at the hospital was 73 years old. And she had to go back to work because in 2008, her entire retirement fund. She was already retired. Everything she had was wiped out.
Fuck.
She had to go back to work like 4 days a week.
Yeah, I mean,
at 73 years old.
and the thing
It's
is,
this sweet little old Indian woman.
they trick us into putting all of our money in the markets instead of pensions, right?
Yeah.
Like all of the structures that used to keep us going and allow us to live into retirement and to retire comfortably in our fucking 50s, right? Like all of that has been chipped away at and destroyed.
I don't know anybody under the age of 40 who expects to retire.
Yeah. I mean,
They're just they all just assume they're going to work till they die on the job.
right? Like
That's
I'm looking for ways of making sure that I can, because I own businesses I want to work at that. But like, yeah, it's still fucking. I'm not ready. Like, no.
I remember my dad retired at 51.
Yeah, I'm basically considering this period of my life like semi-retirement before I off myself.
My dad retired at 51 with a pension that was 1/3 of his final pay that he still receives. He's 86 now.
Right.
This was 35 years ago.
Yeah, and now like 1/3 of your final pay isn't a lot, but if you
I mean, his final pay was like low six figures.
right, and the thing about that is, it's
So like that plus Social Security plus
Yep.
like his investments.
exactly, and it's like if you get that plus Social Security and you have some investments and you paid off all your debts, right? That's fine. Like you're not in poverty. Like, yeah, you may cut back on lifestyle a little bit.
His only like expense, like his fixed expense, is like basic utilities and the land rental fee on the manufactured home he lives in. He owns the house.
Right.
That's paid for, but it's like I don't know, $600-700 a month land rental fee
It's not bad.
for the park. But that's it.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And he's making a pension that's a third of what he made 35 years ago and getting Social Security. And he's got like a bunch of retirement accounts that are not doing as well as they were
Right. Like none of them are.
10 months ago.
God damn.
But
Like,
that's not what my life's going to look like.
and the problem with the MAGA movement is this "Make America Great Again" thing is that they're not doing anything to make it again. They're not doing anything to go back to the again.
No, and I'll be honest, I have never gotten a good solid definition of when again was.
Yeah, no, it's
When
all
were we great? Like
it's like fantasies about like what vacuum cleaner commercials were like in the 50s.
They will not come out and just say it's when when black people couldn't have jobs.
Right, when women were just like,
yeah.
like you can tell it by the media that they like, the memes that they make. Like it's about when women stayed at home.
America was great when 2/3 of the population was legally forbidden to be in the workforce.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not exactly feasible right now.
Yeah, that sounds like it was great for white men.
It was.
But also, again, as we talked about,
But even then, it wasn't as good as it should have been.
right? Because as we've talked about, like because of the structural problems, necessities have gotten more expensive, and that has made things feel awful. Luxuries have gone way down, and that's because there are more people in the workforce, right?
Yeah.
Like, what should have happened is that the gains from all of this growth and all this increased productivity and all of this excess wealth that has been created should have more equitably distributed along the worker to owner spectrum.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and along the entire income distribution. Basically, our poor should have been the middle should be living the lifestyle of the upper middle class of 30 years ago.
We're in a situation where productivity is up like 600% and wages adjusted for inflation are basically the same.
Yeah.
That's a problem.
Like, that's
Increased productivity should see increased reward.
and we've created more and more wealth through debt and through government financing. And
But you also went from like a CEO of a company making 5 times what the average employee made to 500 times what the average employee makes.
And that's insane. And again, 5 times good money. I like that. Back then, it was like obscene enough money that some people were like, "Oh, that's fuck you guys," right?
But, you know,
but they accepted it. They were fine.
There's a reason why after a certain point we used to have a 91% marginal tax rate.
But we used to look at them when it was 5 times and go. But at least nobody had like real deep fucking feelings, and it wasn't fucking everybody over. 5 times now, if we were to see just 5 to 10 times, it'd be like, oh, great, that's awesome. Like, you're doing a great job, Mr. CEO.
Everybody in ownership and the CEOs, the executive class, they would still be making amazing money.
Yeah.
Just because productivity is so much higher.
Like,
but it's just nobody else would have to be destitute for them to be unfathomably wealthy in a way that no human being could spend in 1,000 lifetimes.
Yeah, like Russian nesting doll fucking yachts and parties in Ibiza and
the fact that I once saw a yacht, I saw a motorboat come out of a yacht that came out of a yacht.
Yep, that's the thing that's happened.
And this was like an $800 million thing just taking up space in the goddamn sea.
Who buys... The sheer invention of that does not create any economic activity.
If I had the money for something like that,
you wouldn't buy it.
I still would not be able to justify spending the money on that.
But you look at a good like that, and like the labor and cost of building that, while incredibly high and generates a small amount of economic activity, would not generate as many jobs as, let's say, 1,600 boats.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? 1,600 $500,000 like boats owned by like middle managers that work at companies across America.
When I was a kid,
like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
when I was a kid, my father and nearly every one of his friends owned a boat.
My dad owns a boat.
My dad had a 22-foot Grady White fishing boat. We used to take it out on the Delaware Bay. Our neighbor had a little like 14-foot crabbing boat we would take out in the Chesapeake Bay and go crabbing. And it was just, everybody had a boat.
Right.
And
I don't know a lot of people that own boats anymore. I live in coastal Florida, and I know some people that are affluent, but like,
I can walk to the nearest marina in like 7 minutes.
But the number of people around here that can afford boats has gone down because they don't like it's.
Even the people who will like say, "You want to go out on my boat?" They are renting that boat.
Yeah, right.
They are part of a boat rental pool where they can show up to the marina and be like, "I'm taking a boat."
Which
I reserved it.
There's a fucking $800 million boat out there, and the economic activity that is generated from buying that and having it built is nowhere near the activity that it would take to just build boats for thousands of people. You look
at a guy like Steve Jobs, who paid $550 million for a boat that wasn't finished until after he fucking died.
Right.
And they still finished it.
Yeah, I mean, he paid for it.
And that was one of those fucking boat inside a boat inside of a boat type deals.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. You look at a guy like Steve Jobs, and he like lived so weirdly austerely in like empty homes with no furniture. It's like, I don't even understand why he wanted the boat. It was not the sort of thing that like he seemed to desire. It was just the money was spent for the sake of spending the money.
One, I think it was the sake of spending the money, and two, the one thing that these assholes do want about their boats is they basically want that freedom to go out on their yacht.
I'm just going to dispose bodies in international waters. Right. No one can catch me.
But they also want all of the amenities that they could ever possibly have, and all of the security that they could ever possibly have, and all of the separation from real people that they could ever possibly have. Because if you're on like a $5 million yacht, right, you can have a nice party, but you can't have a gala.
No.
Right?
And you can still be attacked by pirates.
Right. You can still be attacked by pirates. You still have to park in normal ports and deal with normal people. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're not... and your Navy SEALs can't fly on and off with their helicopters.
You're not unusually special.
Right. And that's what it is. They want to be unusually special.
The point is to be unusually special.
And I think that we should basically liquidate the unusually special rich.
That's fair.
Like,
no one will miss them.
No.
And we can use their resources for good.
Yes.
They're hoarded dragon mounds of resources.
Yeah, they're basically the chromatic dragons of our day.
Yeah.
And
Like I remember the time I did the math on Elon's wealth when it peaked at like 450 million billion. Like if you made 1 penny a second for the entirety of human history,
you would not be as rich.
You would not be as rich as Elon Musk.
Yeah,
going back 13,000 years.
That's stupid. That is genuinely stupid.
That's insane.
No one person makes that much benefit to the world, does that much for the world, helps the world that much, adds that much value to society.
I'm hard.
No one.
I'm hard to.
Nobody.
I'm hard pressed to believe anybody has added $1 billion worth of value to the world by themselves.
Right.
Like that's. But like.
I mean, Jonas Salk and Albert Einstein, maybe.
Yeah, and they
you know what I mean?
And they didn't take any of the money for it.
No, that was my point there.
Yeah.
Like that, the people who really bring the most value to our society and have throughout history, like they may make a comfortable living,
but they're not in it for the money.
No,
it's a compulsion to like help better the world.
Yeah, even Leonardo da Vinci, right? Like he wanted to be rich enough to keep doing what he wanted to fucking do. Right?
And what he wanted to do was like some weird science shit.
And art and explain the world and like observe it and like tinker and make fucking new inventions nobody had ever seen.
Just a lot of be gay, do art.
Yep. Be gay, do art. Like, cool. I have nothing against people making enough money to do that. We should all be comfortable.
I just want to be wealthy enough in the Renaissance era Italy that I can be gay and do art and not have anybody fucking hassle me about it.
Yep. That would be great.
That's all I wanted.
But like,
he was also one of the greatest minds ever to walk the earth. But
yeah,
that was ancillary.
And the greatest minds that ever walked the earth, for the most part, bring a lot of value and don't ask for a lot in return.
No,
like the real great minds. Elon Musk is not a great mind. No. Steve Jobs, he was brilliant at some things, but he wasn't actually a great mind. Like, no, he knew how to.
He was very good at
managing engineers
and like
setting high expectations, things like that, and coming up with some ideas.
Setting up high expectations that were still like within the bounds of reason.
Right. He seemed like unreasonable at first, but it was because he was a guy who had enough engineering know-how.
Yeah.
To like come up with a concept.
No, this is possible. Do it.
This is possible. Let's do it. Right. And he could do that. And he worked, and he actually put in work on his own projects. All of those things great, but he actually wasn't a fucking one of the most genius people to ever live either.
The story the night that he figured out that like the wheel on the iPod Classic had to click, or people weren't going to want to scroll. It's like need to click. Or like when you put they made it click when you put your headphones in, even though it was entirely unnecessary, just because people wanted that satisfying look.
Yeah, and
it works. That
still
sort
to
of
this
weird
day,
little shit works.
Like one of the things I hate about about touch screens now these days is that they have almost no tactile, except there's a little vibration when you touch them, right? Which,
if you long press, you get some haptics, but
but like they used to have more functions, and it was great. But yeah, they figured things out like that, but they're not the most fucking mind-altering, like world-changing geniuses. No. They just build products, man.
They just happen to be good at commerce.
Yeah,
and commerce. The purpose of commerce is not the betterment of humanity.
Yeah.
The purpose of commerce is commerce.
Yeah. It has as an ancillary benefit if your market is as free as possible with regulations against strong exploitation, right? Which actually allows for a free market. Like I'm a free market absolutist in that I want a market that like is free of coercion and power dynamics.
None of the early thinkers, when it came to like the foundations of like free markets and capitalism, wanted totally unregulated markets.
No, and they also didn't want markets that were regulated in a way that only helped one or two players in a market.
Yeah,
that created rent seeking and monopolies. Like they knew what they were talking about. They wrote a lot about the risks of.
But you go and read like a guy like Adam Smith through a modern capitalist lens.
Oh yeah,
he sounds like a fucking socialist all of a sudden.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's wild. Yeah, because he's like inventing capitalism,
right?
Or codifying what capitalism became.
Like, the best thing about Marx's Das Kapital is that it actually just expands on areas, for the most part, on areas that Adam Smith saw as potential problems but didn't know how to address or thought would solve themselves through other mechanisms.
That didn't.
Right? That didn't. Like, or that some areas where he was blind to. That was it. Like, Marx expands on him really well. Even, like, for decades was called, like, the greatest fucking student of Marx. Or of Smith.
Smith, yeah.
Of Smith. Like, but, you know, I read the Communist Manifesto and I know what I'm talking about. So, long and short, the structures of our economy are a problem, and we are about to face another reckoning with them. I think that is going to be ugly.
And when you have a global economy, you run into this really unfortunate situation where it's like, we can take everyone else down with us.
Yeah.
And other people can take us down with them. Like, there's...
Yeah,
to a lesser extent than we can take down everyone else, but...
What I think is happening, actually, is the inverse, is that they're working on diversifying their portfolio, so to speak, in a way that hedges us out. It looks like every country on Earth is taking steps to move away from us, as we talked about.
And why wouldn't they? We are not a trustable partner right now.
No.
And it will take decades to get that trust back, if it's even possible.
Right. Because we've proven even one thing, even Trump, no Trump, whatever, like with or without him going forward, we've proven that we are just an election away from
total collapse.
Total collapse, but also whatever deals or arrangements we've made, whatever accords we've come to, whatever tens of millions of dollars and hundreds of man hours we've put into a trade deal, a peace treaty, you know, a trade adjustment, like some form of diplomacy, whatever it may be, right? It is only as good as your next election cycle.
Yeah, we need to... if we get through the other side of this, we need to put in some, like, aggressive and genuinely enforceable checks on the executive branch and its power.
Absolutely. And that...
one thing, here's an idea that's being floated right now. And this would balance things a little bit. Taking control of the federal marshals out of the executive branch and putting it in the judicial.
I like that idea. I was thinking about that.
That's something that more people have been floating it.
I was thinking about something like
Apparently
that.
50 federal justices got together to discuss the plan.
That's a great idea. Like, I think that would be a fantastic idea. I think that I would, if I were re-envisioning one of the areas I was thinking about the checks and balances problem, right? And if I were like my magic wandy, I can make some adjustments happen. Now, there's lots of ways we need to adjust our constitution and fix it. But one of the things that I was like, you know, would be helpful in a situation like now would be to constitutionally enshrine control of the federal marshals, right? To the courts with a permanent budget that is automatic. Yeah. Right? Like, it can't be like that, you know, there shall be one marshal for each justice, right? Yeah. At a minimum. And Congress can give more based on their needs, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Basically, there's always each judge in the country has access to the marshal service, right? Yeah. Like, and there will be that.
And it's guaranteed.
It's guaranteed. And that committees in the Senate or House can issue warrants for contempt, right? Constitutionally, I think that would be a fix, because then you would give both the legislature and the judicial branch. Like, now, after the warrant, it would still go to the judicial system, right? Right. But committee, like, some asshole refuses to answer questions to a committee, they're like, contempt, done. And it's not a political process anymore. They just fucking the 15 members of that committee, right? Yeah. Bang, bang, bang. Right. This asshole refused to answer questions and provide documents. Contempt. And then the court is like, yeah, no, you refused to answer that question.
And then the courts would have an enforcement mechanism with the marshals under their purview. Yeah. I think that's an idea that I saw floated yesterday.
I like it.
Yeah. I was like, that works.
Yeah. That's because I think that we need to adjust Oof, a few things. I mean, the emoluments clause needs to be updated.
Yeah, and we need
presidential immunity needs to be fucking nixed.
We need to make sure that we have a system where our checks and balances aren't predicated entirely on like good faith and a handshake.
Yeah. Like some things need to be done to make Congress do more work.
Yes.
Some things need to be done so that the courts have to operate based on law and moral reasoning and not on ideological presupposition, right? And or the ability to just redefine laws how they see fit, like fuck you Fifth Circuit, or hell, fuck you John Roberts and fucking Alito too.
Fuck a lot of you people.
Fuck a lot of you people. And the administration needs to be curtailed in a few ways, like hands down. Like there's no excuses for it. We weren't built like this. We've made ourselves this way over time. And like it needs to be changed, and we need to start thinking about what we want to do from it, and then start pressuring the Democratic Party to make those platform pieces.
Yes,
I don't want to vote for these fuckers just because they're different. I will because I fucking have to for now. But you know what? If it's going to continue,
it would be nice for them to give me something positive to vote for.
Like they are, I'm going to say it. They are like one bad midterm away from me just being like, you know what? If we're getting fascism, and you're not going to actually do anything about it, we're getting fascism. Fuck you.
That's the thing.
I won't vote for you.
It's real easy to like. It should be real easy to win these elections.
Yeah.
And I understand we have a lot of information problems, like getting actual factual information to people that they believe.
And structurally, like, our elections are predicated on demography and geography.
Yeah.
Right. And there's problems there.
I think that I don't. You know what? I think districting shouldn't be a state thing. I think the country should be broken up into like districts of equal size.
I mean, there's a lot
many more districts.
Yes, many more.
Many more districts.
But
6,000. I want 6,000 members of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, we
give them to me.
Built this system by mistake, and we've let Congress abdicate most of its power and turn into nothing but a political body.
Yeah.
Right. We've allowed the courts.
Yeah, it's become a system where they're either a rubber stamp or they're ineffectual virtue signaling.
Yeah. And with that being the latter part is my biggest problem. I'm getting to this point where just stopping fascism isn't like enough of a motivator to vote because it's not gonna.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you're not going to do anything to fix this other than exist as not them, then you're not actually doing anything, and I'm not voting for you.
If 2024 has taught us anything, it's that you can't win an election just on not being the bad guy.
Right.
You can't. Too many people like the bad guy.
Yeah.
And too many people don't care. Because too many people don't feel like their life is going to change one way or the other, no matter who gets elected.
And let's face it, a bunch of the voters, whether or not they were dumb, whether or not they were ill-informed, whether or not their reasoning was wrong, there were a bunch of voters that looked at the Democratic Party and said, well, you fucked this up, and you fucked that up, and my life isn't any better. And they switched sides, right? Or they didn't show up. And those two pieces, either one of those would have changed the election. Like, so being different on Gaza would have improved your numbers. It may not have won it for you.
Right.
But it would have definitely improved your numbers in Michigan and Pennsylvania.
It wouldn't have kept anybody who was already going to vote for you from voting for you.
Correct.
It would not have been a deal breaker.
Yep. So your turnout could have been higher.
Yeah.
And there might have been more people who were enthusiastic for you. Yeah. You could have acknowledged the inflation, like, and not in a like techno speak, political babble kind of way, but like
you got to be like if you really do believe it's greedflation, you need to just use phrases like they are stealing from you.
Yep.
They are ripping you off. They are doing this to you.
Right. And you could have said, if you were Kamala Harris, instead of this like no daylight bullshit, right? You should have thrown him under the bus and said, look, there are things that Joe has done that have been great for the economy, things that I think were not as helpful. And I was only a voice in the administration. His politics are very old school. He is very laissez-faire, let the market do its thing. And for the most part, it has been working, but for some of you, it's not. And for those of you, it's not. There's greedflation. And I'm going to go after those fucks, and I'm going to throw them in jail.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
even if you can't do it.
Yeah. Say you're going to do it.
Say you want to do it.
Say you want to do it. I'm going to go after the people who caused the greedflation. I'm going to go after people who are ripping you off in housing.
I'm going to make them afraid to keep doing it to you.
Yep.
Because they might be the ones who go to prison next.
Anybody who's been committing fraud to keep prices high and keep you hurting, if they have broken a law, I will find it.
We're gonna
and I will prosecute them.
Use things like that. That system that a bunch of corporate landlords were using to like use AI to figure out like rental increases across an entire city. Use that against them.
Yeah.
Like that story came out in 2020, late 2023.
Right. And they were all using it together.
Yeah.
And that's market fixing.
Yeah.
That's price fixing.
It's collusion.
The
Use it
antitrust
against
laws
them.
that we currently have could apply to it. And whether or not you can get a conviction doesn't fucking matter. Use
You got there
it.
and say, we are going to do everything we can to break up the large corporate rental chains.
Yep. And you know what?
We're going to limit the amount of units a single corporation can own.
Yep. We're going to limit big tech. We're going to make sure that it's not 6 companies owning fucking everything.
Yeah.
Like,
why? Because fuck them.
yeah. And you should have done that. You should have blamed Joe a little bit for like the people who were hurting.
Yeah.
Kamala, you should have done it.
Yeah.
And if you had, you might have gained some trust. That's all.
And
There's no downside to it.
what could Joe Biden do to you at that point?
Right. Like,
First of all, he was barely doing public appearances. He was essentially a non-entity for the last 8 months of 2024.
and it was only a 4-month presidential run because she stepped into the race so goddamn late.
Yeah.
She had 4 months, right?
She should
Should have.
And her momentum was good in the beginning.
Yeah. Should have just rode that.
There was
They
a
should
lot
have
of squandered.
should have kept calling him weird. Should have fucking not shackled Tim Walz. Just let him do his thing. Let
Just
him
be
run
like, be a
fucking
pit bull,
wild.
be an attack dog.
Whatever consultants talked them out of that. Fuck you.
I am convinced that the people that the Democratic establishment hire as consultants are a conservative psyop, designed to keep them as weak and feckless and pathetic as possible.
You're probably not wrong. But yeah. Basically, after all of this conversation, from the bad news into talking about the structure of the economy and everything else, I have landed on this. Unless Democrats offer me a shiny fucking solution that looks different, that sounds different, that sounds like it has some fucking balls.
That sounds like a solution at all. Offer a solution.
Like, look, the GOP is filled with a bunch of weird, sex-pesty fucking retards. And I'm using the hard word. Yeah. They're fucking stupid. They are ghoulish and dumb and mean. And you know what? Shit in their Wheaties. Let them know how dumb they are.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk has a tiny face and a big forehead. He's somehow in his 30s and he looks like he's in his fucking 50s. And he spends all of his time trying to debate the dumbest college kids he can, still editing the shit out of it so he looks better.
Yeah.
And then goes to fucking England for getting his place and gets fucking wrecked. Why? Because they're a bunch of fucking losers and their voters are losers too. So you know what? Fucking fight. Democrats, stop sounding feckless. Stop being a garden fucking...
No more throwing your hands up and be like, what are we supposed to do other than write a sternly worded letter?
Well, let's go to brunch about it and complain. No. Fuck off. You suck. Do something.
You know, here's something. You know what? I got a solution for this country. You know what? When things were better.
When were they better?
Things were better when if you said something bigoted or really fucking dumb or cruel, you just got popped in the fucking mouth.
That's true. Like, I'm not a big fan of assault. I think we should solve our
I'm
problems.
not talking about just like, oh, pap.
Yeah.
Smack in the mouth.
I'm just saying, I think we should solve our problems through nonviolence. However,
Some people need a smack in the mouth.
some people need a smack in the mouth. I'm going to say the N-word. That's what I think. All right, they're like, just slap them. That's a good idea.
Slap in the mouth.
All right.
Will they stop thinking it? No. Will they think better of saying it? Yes.
So, this has been The Grift. Give us all your money so we can spend that money being edgy and cruel to conservatives.
You know you want to.
You want to give us all your money.
You really do.
Plus, we still want to blow up that Tesla.
Yeah.
Cybertruck needs to go.
Cybertruck
We
needs
want
to
to
go.
buy a Cybertruck and blow it up.
Yeah. So make that happen. Follow your dreams. You can reach your goals. We're living proof.
Help us follow our dreams.
Yes. Till next week.
Adios.